looks like we have a liftoff stream-wise. Hello, everyone. Oh, except we also need the chat. It's very important everyone see the chat, right? I mean, that's a thing.
Yes.
Let me turn that on as folks are
Yeah.
filtering in, or will filter in, hopefully. Pull that.
I already see one like, so that's something.
Hey! I like the like. Thank you all very much. And if I
What is the
paste
thing that the mantra? Like, subscribe, and something else. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe.
like,
I think
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
something
like, follow, and
to that
subscribe.
effect.
Yep. Don't forget to like, follow, and whatever.
Yeah.
Do the things.
Or basically just go, please hit the like button.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm begging you. Hit the bell to be notified of
Okay.
videos in the future.
So, Steve, you need to take Ein and find a fake
Okay.
gun and do the thing, like this
yes,
channel
I'm
or the
already
dog
fine.
gets it. Right.
Oh no, that's terrible. Nobody would ever do that to Ein.
No.
Although,
they
wait a
wouldn't.
minute, did they shoot at? They shot at Spike and Ein quite a
They
lot.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
When he picked Ein up, there was a lot of gunfire in that.
God,
Oh, Cowboy Bebop.
let's turn 9 around.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get started with the discussion. See how all this goes. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are going to talk tonight about a light romantic No, we're going to talk about Angel's Egg. Mamoru Oshii's 1985 OVA, Angel's Egg. And to sort of establish things a little bit, only 2 years before, Mamoru Oshii had invented the OVA with Dallos and had essentially established the format of selling anime direct to consumer, of just advertising it, and folks would just buy it directly out of a magazine or advertisements or whatever. And so you just see the ad and it would say, send 5,000 yen here and we will mail you a tape. That got started with Dallos only 2 years beforehand. A year later, 1984, he released Urusei Yatsura the movie Two Beautiful Dreamers, which is an odd sort of meditation on reality versus fantasy. And then a year later, he releases this thing, Angel's Egg, which is, I think I said in a tweet, I would argue this is Symbolism the anime. It's just weird visual imagery kind of for a little over an hour. So, and I say that because, also, it was a collaboration between Oshii and Yoshitaka Amano, character designer for Final Fantasy and Viper 100D and a bunch of other stuff. But Amano was not very well known yet. He'd done a few things, but he wasn't like a big household name among otaku yet. So it feels to me like you can see Angel's Egg as being this sort of progression from Dallos, which is a pretty standard sci-fi action story, to Beautiful Dreamers, which is a bit more unreal, to Angel's Egg kind of going the extreme opposite direction of saying, okay, how artsy-fartsy can we get with the OVA market? Like, how far can we push it? Yes. To the extreme! Because, I don't know about you guys, when I first started watching Angel's Egg, and, the first time, I had to turn it off because I was like, oh no, nothing's happening. Oh, what is this going to be? And then when I came back to it and realized, oh, okay, this is an art piece, I could really appreciate it. But it definitely comes across very aggressively arty from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I had been aware, I had not watched the movie until we decided to watch it for tonight. But I've been aware of the movie. Of course, I'm an Oshii fan, with Pat Labor and Ghost in the Shell. Mm-hmm. And so I knew about it, but I never got around to actually watching it. Mm-hmm. I've heard that it was artsy, and which was actually for me kind of fun because I actually live where I live in Baltimore. I live in close proximity to art house theaters, so I watch a lot of art house. So this is definitely art house anime. For those of you who are thinking about watching this, just know what you're getting into, which is you're gonna have to think through this, and no matter how you are with art house movies, sometimes these movies you have to see once or twice. I actually watched it twice in the past week to make sure that my thought process, which is probably going to be different than yours and probably going to be different than yours because this thing is so whatever it is.
Well, as long as your thinking is insane, it's fine. We're all on the same page.
And it's kind of true. But for me, when I also in between watching it, like the first time, like you, Brett, I had to say, okay, I got to slow it, kind of dial it back a little bit and just kind of go, okay, what do I think this means? What is this going on? So I was used to the slow pace. So I didn't have an issue with the pacing. I didn't have an issue with the animation. I really loved the animation, actually. But I had to watch it a second time because I was just like, okay, I got to look this film up. I got to look up Oshii. I got to look up all this stuff because I'm just not the pieces. There were pieces there that were definite to me at any rate. And then I had to actually look at, sometimes you have to look at the creators and just kind of go, try to at least understand what was going through their minds when they were making it. And then Oshii made the two comments that kind of went for me, and then at the second moment, at the very same time, going, I wish they didn't say that. And it was what it was that the first statement was for himself saying, I'm not really sure what this means. And he said that, and then the sec followed with, he goes, this can be the interpretation of whoever views this. Anything that I come up with that I might think that this might be is kind of negated by those two comments anyway. So this really, because for me, this is the story of his loss of faith in Christianity. I think that this movie was his last gasp at trying to, maybe this movie will save me and I'll stay a Christian. And it didn't, so he wasn't. And I think, I'm kind of putting it in a nutshell, but, but it was just, and then, having to wrestle with the fact of, I don't really know what I make. And I was kind of like, okay, to me, that's a little bit of a cop out.
Sure.
Maybe because he doesn't discuss at all about his departure from Christianity. He doesn't talk anything about that. And he won't, or hasn't, or ever will. And I think this is the best. To me, I think this is the best explanation you're going to get. and honestly, but I was like sitting there thinking that was a cop out. That's a cop out because when you make something, when you create something, when you write something, you might start it in one way and come out another.
Sure. Or
you may not know what you're getting into when you're starting it, but at some point there becomes structure and a work, and there's something that goes into it. So there's definitely, we may never know what it is.
Right.
I mean, to be honest with this movie, we may never know what it is, and I could be totally wrong. But it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like when I look back at my drunk poetry from college, I go, clearly there was something going on in my head at that time. But so we get there. So anyway, we start off the discussion just to say, personally, I think this is the part.
Well, and I contrast that with the creators of Serial Experiments Lane, who said that they went into Lane with a firm plan about what was going on, explanations for everything that happens in that show, and they had a whole kind of Bible, but they made it such that they said, people can have different interpretations, and that's fine. And so, so they said, we don't expect you to have our view of what's actually happening in there. We want you to piece it together however you want to. But there's still a logic to it. there's still some plan there, which helped a lot. I don't know. I find that Angel's Egg, like a lot of high art, is so heavy with symbolism that you can interpret it almost every way. It just kind of, if you want to see this one way, you want to see this another way. But it is certainly a story about people seeking things, right? It is all about the search.
Yeah.
And that is a theme that is all the way through, and is kind of, never really resolved. It is just searching all the way through that story. John, what were your initial impressions?
Well, initially I'd heard about it with Triad a few years ago, and it was in one of those obscure anime movies you may never have heard of. So I took a screenshot of it and said, "Okay, give it a wing."
Sure.
And it was like Saturday night, nothing else going on. And started watching it. I watched it the whole way through.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just sat back afterwards and said, "What the hell did I do for an hour? What was that? What was that ending?"
Yep.
And going back now this second time to watch it, it's there's a lot of things that it never even occurred to me until I sort of kind of paid attention more to some of the dark things in the background, like.
You have to watch it. You're right.
Yeah.
You have to watch it again.
Like the dark image of the Ark.
Yeah.
In one scene, I'm like, wait a minute. And water. I'm like, okay, I get you. Walking into the facility with all of the water bottles that were lined up the stairs. When you first walk in, it's through a split in the wall of a giant rib cage, like Jonah and the whale. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
We got a Noah story. We got a Jonah and the whale. Starting to see here. His, I don't know what that thing he carries over his shoulder is supposed to be. It's very mechanical. Yeah. But it never shoots. But I don't, whatever it is. It's got in the middle of it. In some parts, it looks like a face, a little red face, and then in other parts, it looks like a rose. And I'm like, wait, Rosicrucians. The order of Catholic of Catholic monks, the Rosicrucians, and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, I'm seeing, I'm starting to piece some things together here with what's going on here, and it's an interesting intersection of this, another example, Judeo-Christian intersection in an anime with the symbolism of the world egg, which Japanese mythology tradition has the chaotic world egg that holds the seeds to life that breaks open and spreads away. And I think there's a Chinese one called Pangu's egg, which is a similar sort of thing where you've got the world egg, and it I think Pangu he's like a beast man, and he has to, with the world egg, stand up and push the sky up and push the ground down. And for 18,000 years, he pushes these things. Each day, he gets taller and taller, and eventually he becomes the sky and the mountains and everything else that's between heaven and earth. So it's like this very interesting Eastern mythology that's wrapped in here with the whole world egg thing. And I'm like, good night in the morning.
You see, and so, so at the very beginning, the first time I watched it and I saw the bird and the egg, and the first thing I thought of was literally, and I laughed at myself, because also actually the first part of the music that was playing, which I found very distracting, by the way, was that the Star Child from 2001. And actually the music where you have all the voices rising up and up and up and up and like a structure, that's in 2001.
Oh yeah, it's very 2001. Totally, you're right.
So there was that, but and it's funny because when you brought up the Pangu, and I didn't even think of that at all until you just said it now. So I thought that. So I'm gonna have to go. Oh God, and now I'm gonna have to go that way, because what I was actually looking at was like, okay, each egg is an angel. When the girl falls into the ravine and she turns into a woman, which is to me turning into an angel, and she lets off all those eggs up, and then they all start growing. So, and the ship that comes down, which to me also, on a side note, looks like from Dungeons and Dragons, the
Beholder. Oh yeah, absolutely.
and comes down and keeps collecting these angels and bringing it back up from the whole of the ship, because that scene right there got me. And at the end, with the very slow pullback. And
that's something I did not notice the first time around. My eyes could not understand the visual there. It was just a massive land. And it wasn't until I rewatched it that I was like, oh, it's a hoe. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to have to look at that because I didn't even factor in Eastern theology into that at all. So now
it blended in so nicely. Water, her constantly collecting jugs of water because water, aqua vita, is the water of life.
Yep.
Right.
And she observes the water in the jug because she's looking for the purity of the water of life, and that she constantly is collecting this stuff.
Yeah.
His part in that, it really felt like the sort of the difficulty of man versus faith, where man wants to control, man wants to, the tanks rolling through town, man is a destructive force, and man wants to grasp the power that is creation.
How do you know it's in the egg? By destroying it?
Right. And destroys creation by his own will. And it's just like, wow, there's a lot to unpack in the whole movie there. If you're not just like if you watch it cold, you could just walk away from it and be like, that's just screwed up. And then you watch it again, you're like, okay, here we go. Now I got to think about all this stuff.
See, now what I got from that scene of the tanks rolling through was that, and to me, the cross gun is actually the cross that Christ bears. See, I thought the guy was Jesus in the movie.
Sure.
And of course, just my interpretation. And he's actually moving through the city, as if he was walking to the crucifixion. So he's carrying the burden on his shoulder, but he's hitching a ride with the tanks to wherever it is that he's going. But did you notice on the tanks, as he's sitting there, the tanks are alive and the cords are pulsing, pulsing, and he gets up and it squishes down a little bit. But as soon as he gets off of it, everything rigid. Continue on, and I'm just like sitting there going, something I don't know what, and I have no idea. So I still don't.
And you were torn about the phallic symbolry.
Well, I was just going to bring that up. That up until that point, I don't think you see a straight line in that movie. I think it's all curves all the way up until you suddenly see the giant, long, hard things coming into the into the city. One over the other, and they deposit this guy. But everything up to that has been very, very encircling, very nurturing, very classic sort of female imagery. The girl holding the egg in a way that makes her look pregnant, right? Very, very classic sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought she was a nice metaphor for Gaia, the Earth Mother. Well, and that the world egg, Gaia giving birth to life on Earth.
Oh yeah, definitely. And she's young enough to be innocent, to be the classic sort of thing. Right. But like I saw that initial image, zooming in on the egg with the bird inside, and simple explanation is that this is a dream of the world egg, because you zoom in and you see it sort of twitch as though it is dreaming. Yeah. And then you see all this happening. So this could all just be sort of one dream happening, which gets into the, is everything just a dream, right, of all that stuff.
The dream time of the Aboriginal concepts.
Yeah. And it all comes around to the potatoes in Attack on Titan, right? They're very egg-like, very egg-shaped. Everything comes together. No.
The potatoes Attack on. Wow. Okay, I missed that part.
Right. Yeah. They're egg shaped, and that is the world. Is the potato of Attack on Titan. See, everything makes sense. It's very deep. These shows are very deep.
All comes together.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, and what I also find interesting is how the movie kind of refuses to give you any firm explanations for anything. The girl never tells you what she's doing with the egg. The guy never tells you where he's from. It's all just very much, we are here observing this thing.
Well, she keeps asking him, Darewa, who are you? And he never answers her.
He just looks at her with dead eyes, and he's just like, it's in the egg.
And then, of course, I love at the end, he says, okay, and who are you? As she's sleeping. Fair question. which I think does raise kind of that fundamental conflict, which is that, and I think it gets back to what you're saying there, John. He comes into the situation, and from his perspective, yes, she's nurturing this egg. What gives her the right to be the nurturer of the egg, right? How does he know that she deserves it, other than the fact that she has first possession? She's just this little girl who found this egg. I couldn't help thinking, watching it, you could so easily tell this story from this other perspective, where he knows the egg is dangerous, and he's just waiting to get it away from her so that he can crack it and break it open. There'll be a very reasonable turn of events in all of this, but it's very much not how it's presented to us.
If it had been a dragon's egg, then we easily could have just resolved the whole entire thing in like 5 minutes.
Exactly. Unless it's Smith's Kobayashi, then it's not. That's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of the tough things. Is I think this is a movie that is so pregnant, with symbolism that you can kind of go any way with it in a lot of ways. That there's just.
Well, I think certainly by the time you get to the end, you've got all the life symbolism. I mean, the grain of rice by the end is quintessential life in Eastern culture, and it's very interesting to think how what was the process of trying to write this that it you know what I mean? You've got the direction, you've got what's going on the screen, you have a kind of story, but it's like, how did you? You know what I mean? How were you talking to your staff about this? I need this scene to look like that. Well, what are they doing? Well, that's not important. It just has to look like this.
Just throw harpoons at shadows. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fishermen trying to control nature again, harpooning things. Like, okay.
That's where I say that it's kind of, to me, it's a kind of a cop-out where he says, well, I kind of don't know where I'm going with this, or I don't know what this is, or whatever it was. And the thing is that there had to have been a storyboard when they made this, right? There's a storyboard here, and you're right, I can just see the animation staff just coming home that night and just going, give me the whiskey. I don't know. What are you making? I don't know, honey. I don't know.
So what are you guys working on? The acid fever dream of a madman? I don't know.
There's a lot of blue. That's all I can say. There's a lot of blue.
But there is some structure to this. So I think that there is something there, but we may never know.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you've seen Cat Soup, Cat Soup is very sort of stream of consciousness, and that is something where I can totally see them saying, okay, we're going to do this scene and this scene and this scene and whatever. But there is so much repeated symbolism here, and there's so much that they're kind of coming back to, that it's clear that it all is meant to tie together. It's kind of like Evangelion, actually, in a lot of ways, where you can look at a lot of the imagery of Evangelion, look at a lot of the individual shots and scenes, and they seem random. But there's enough connective tissue to be like, no, they were going somewhere there.
Yeah,
and I mean, this does. I mean, if you put all the symbolism together in a sort of coherent pile, there is a storyline going along there, and it's just like, wouldn't it have been nice if you guys had been like, yeah, it's about the world and mankind and the beginning and the end of it all. The giant ship coming down with all the statues that's representative of a growing population of the planet, and it's overcrowded, and this world egg is going to give birth to a new world where it's better, and yet mankind destroys that, and the harbinger of this new better world ends up on the flying planet representation, and it goes off wherever. That's God's thing and gone off, and now you guys are all on your own.
Just like
no, that's not obvious. It's just like, well, what are you doing to me there?
Because the only thing I could come up with was that Noah's Ark failed, and that the whole of the ship that the dude standing on at the end is basically the doom. Is basically humanity's doom, and Jesus is left behind, and because he doesn't go on the ship with the other, which are only women, and women, and they're put in as statues or I don't know, it powers God's eye, whatever that thing is. And
all the statues look like Athena for some reason, which
they
should
do,
be a
except for
wisdom
her, except for the
link
little girl.
again. Yeah.
Right.
Except for
Yeah.
the little girl. And so, because he does talk about a sort of version of the Noah's Ark at one point, the only real conversation that happens in this movie. By the way, by the way, yeah. By the way, all the speaking parts happen in less than 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Total. But
they didn't want to pay the voice actors for a lot of dialogue, so they cut it really short.
Really,
come in for an hour, you'll be done.
Exactly.
And
they were doing this in one take, guys. I need 10 minutes.
Done. But the fishermen who are supposed to be providers, they're men, and they stay on the hull of the boat. They never move. They never ascend, and they're always doing the same thing over and over again, which is destroying what the little town that was built on the bottom of the ship. And we were talking earlier about the symbolism of the whale, and the whale and things like that. And I just think, personally, I think it's just somehow he came to the conclusion that when God destroyed the world, he actually destroyed the world, and that there's this is man is done, women are fine, Jesus, you're on your own on the bottom of the ship, and fun with all those water bottles. I mean, it's
Now, Steve, you're saying bottom of the ship. I thought that was a grain of rice as it's panning out.
No, that's the whole. If you look at it as it's panning out, you can see the how it's segmented.
Yeah,
it's just pulling out. Those are rivets, and those are plates on the bottom of the ship. That's what it looks like.
It looked to me the way the front.
And it's a ridge. And
the front part of it was off. Was like a grain of rice laying on a unknown surface.
There was a ridge, and there's a ridge in the middle that shows a shadow on the other half. So that's kind of what the bottom of the ship looks like. And so, and if you notice that there's land, there's actual vegetation and mountains, but then there's this clear area, and they're all segmented it out.
Right.
Like the whole of the ship. So
those Stonehenge type of structures
right,
that you see walked by.
Those are rivets.
Interesting.
So
I thought you were looking at an unhulled grain of rice, and I'm like, oh, that makes great symbolism for Asian mythology.
That works too.
Yeah, I was going to say. Now, keep in mind, that's what I saw.
Right.
Right. So the grain of rice has just as much validity as anything else, because who knows?
Yeah, we don't have any direction from the creators of it, so it could be anything.
Right. No hint, no clue. Although I had a little bit of a chuckle. Another side note was when he's going in and he's talking about Noah and his hands running up the tree.
Yeah,
tree of life.
The tree of man. Remember that in Ghost in the Shell?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
the movie.
So that was the movie. It was in the Ghost in the Shell at the tank scene, battle scene, towards the tank, and the bullets go up.
Interesting. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. No. Totally. And I find that a really interesting theory partly because having watched Land of the Lustrous, Hoseki no Kuni, a little while ago, the very sort of Buddhist enemy in that is a ship covered in giant statues. And I do have to wonder if that was perhaps like a reference back to Angel's Egg. But if that is sort of some common visual imagery, something going back to something around this idea that, what if the eye is Buddhism, basically? Humanity is turning to that, and they are being sort of uplifted into that once they give up on this world. They ascend to this other way of seeing things, with Jesus and Christianity left behind, basically. Who knows?
Again, almost any interpretation is valid because we don't have anything that directs us one way or the other.
Yep, who ever knows? It's also fun watching something. Yeah, that could be a Gnostic reference. That's a good point, Guts. I think it's also interesting because this is also a movie with such distinct visual flair. That lovely Amano style. That and one of the first shots is that weird sort of mechanical thing that the guy is standing next to on the desert while the eye appears. It's just all spires and cogs and things that have no apparent purpose, but it's just visually fascinating to look at. And having that to look at over and over again, having this very Rococo European city to look at.
Right. Well, and that's the weird part, because you have him with all the mechanically sharp, weird thing. Mm-hmm. You have the tanks, which have a mechanically functional part, but also sort of biologically squishy. Yeah. And then this very soft European town. Nice little curves, things,
like,
balustrades.
You feel like you should be able to get a soft pretzel and mustard.
Exactly. Yes. Where's my croissant?
In a fish time.
At any minute, someone could break out with the sound of music.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Actually, you know what this movie is? I think you forgot. I think you've got something there. I think that this is a very, very odd interpretation of Heidi.
Oh, it all makes sense. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The guy is a reference to the grandfather, right?
To the grandfather,
right?
Yep.
Because she's seeking him, but they have a tempestuous relationship, right? But eventually, they come to something. He watches over while she sleeps. By the way, for everyone who complains
of their relationship is egg.
Exactly. Everyone who complains about the elevator sequence in Evangelion needs to watch the sequence of the girl asleep with the fire in Angel's Egg, which goes on for 7 minutes. It feels like, and it's just this little flicker.
You're sitting there. No, it's so true. And you're sitting there just going,
Is he going to do it now? Is he going to do the thing? Something going to happen here? Well, I was trying to figure out behind her, there is that circular structure.
Yeah.
And then something that the way that the curtains are almost looks like a Japanese or Chinese character.
Oh, interesting.
So I tried to use Google handwriting, and I couldn't get it. I don't know what the character is. I don't know whether it's, kanji, is it hiragana, katakana, whatever it is. But I couldn't get Google to give me an answer to it. So I'm trying all kinds of combinations of the way it looked, and I'm like, this is not, I don't know what this is.
Screw you, Westerner. Huh. Not what I expected it to translate to.
I was wondering if it maybe showed up as life, or maybe it showed up as death. A single character symbolizing something.
Can't be that easy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the tools to be able to figure out what that was. So
yeah, it'll either be something like circle, very vague, or it'll be NHK News. I was like, wait, what? No.
Or a Ford Bronco advert.
Ford Bronco ad. Ford, it's the best. That's what that means.
It all comes together.
It's all become clear to me now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the reasons I love Angel's Egg is because we don't get a lot of this in any medium, right? It's pretty rare to get a pure artistic vision for 70 minutes just there on screen. And it is just, I think, a really interesting piece of art, and I use that term with reservation, but it is definitely just here's some art. Interpret it. See what you think.
I'd be curious to see it in a large screen format.
True.
Because so much of it is so dark that I thought about it after I started seeing more and more dark parts of it. I'm like, I wonder if I can adjust the screen resolution or something to figure out, am I missing something, or is it just that's the artsy part of it? It's just dark.
Sure.
You have no reference to that darkness, and you have to kind of fill in the gaps on your own.
Actually, Serial Experiments Lane, everything comes after Lane. They talked about that because they did a what do you call it when you redo
interview?
When you go back to the visuals and rework the visuals.
Remaster?
Yes, thank you. They did a remaster, and they were back and they said the thing was, before recently, it was really hard to transfer that art onto like tape or onto whatever it would end up being on, and preserve all the detail and get all the levels right. So when they remastered Lane, they went back and they just sort of tweaked the stuff, and there was all this detail in the back of that art, in the backgrounds of that show, that no one noticed before, because it essentially had faded into a solid black color when it was broadcast on television, basically. And so there was all this interesting visual stuff you could actually understand. And I think that's just kind of one of those inherent things about video transfer, that unless you're Francis Ford Coppola and can afford to make everything exactly perfect all the way through, you're going to lose a lot of that detail a lot of the time.
Which I had a feeling there had to have been some. Like when they showed the arc up on some structure with the supports on it. It could have been just completely black for the purposes of like letting you fill it in. But I felt like there probably was some detail somewhere on what it was sitting on.
Yeah.
That
there's probably this sign somewhere in all the blackness that it just says, press pause, read this, all questions answered. It's just one big list, and nobody's been able to find it.
Right?
No idea.
This is what it means. Or it's just this big smiley face with ha ha.
Exactly. Maybe the comedian smile face.
Carving in Latin that just tells you this film is actually about buying a brand new car, Ford Bronco. No, you're not supposed to sneak that in there.
So as I'm watching this, I kind of felt like the monks in Monty Python who are walking around going, my head hurts.
Yeah.
My head really hurts.
Yeah, I don't know. It's. I found myself oscillating between two reactions to this movie. One was sort of intense frustration of being unmoored and just having to have it all wash over me. And the other, thoroughly enjoying having just not having to fit this into my preconceived notions of what was going to happen, where it was go, what everything means. I could just experience and absorb this and know it to be kind of whatever I wanted it to be. That and knowing that there is obviously, again, some connections there, but there was something really freeing to having something that is so abstract in that way, that you're just kind of letting the mind make free associations throughout the entire thing. Of is he Chinese? I don't know. He's got sort of a Chinese sort of maybe that's wired into all this.
A Maoist jumpsuit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of military dude.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's the things that oftentimes is nice about sort of the avant-garde artsy fartsy films. Is you're gonna give yourself a bigger headache trying to actually figure it out, much more so than just sitting there and being like, okay, I'm gonna let this experience happen to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'll worry about thinking about it later.
Yep. And then of course the brain starts trying to make it about it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a ride. It's definitely a ride.
Yeah.
When you go into something like this, this is when you go, I'm used to the 26 episode structure, or I'm used to the 71 to 96 minute structure, or I'm used to this. And then this movie just kind of just says, okay, sit down, relax, pop open a beer or whatever beverage of choice, and just sit back and let it happen, because there's nothing you can do about this at all.
Yeah. Light up a little something.
Just lean back and enjoy the ride. Like I said earlier, it enjoyed greatly the animation and being able to look at, although I am wondering about your point about, playing with contrast and seeing if there's actually any,
detail in there. Yeah.
In there. So I'm curious to go back and see that. And I didn't mind that there was no dialogue, other than the fact that I had no idea what.
It totally worked.
And it worked. The only thing I think I would do different is the soundtrack. I did not like it. I had a hard time with it, and I think you could have gone a gothic route. Oh my god! I mean, I could have done like throat singing would have been preferable to this, but I mean, seriously, I think if you wanted to go gothic, I think there were other ways you could have done it.
Sure.
Yeah, but didn't that soundtrack work from the perspective that it was
unsettling?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like it was annoyingly odd, so that you're kind of. It left me with a sense through, for the first time watching it, it left me with a great sense of anticipation at every moment. That constantly I was waiting for like something really, like I got really excited when the fishermen started throwing spears.
Yeah.
I'm like, now we're doing something. Now something big's gonna happen.
Nope.
And then I'm like, and
yeah, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's points to it that make sense. I guess at the beginning when it's chaotic, and you realize that you're going to be going into something chaotic because this is chaotic.
Right.
So there's that, but we don't need to have that hammered in through the entire 71 minutes. For the chaos to come in. I think there's other ways that you can do it with, or not at all. I mean, sometimes silence is, and just ambient noise is good enough.
Well, and I think that
point across.
Well, that little piano theme they had, the dun 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 dun, I think was a very effective, sort of odd, but it carried the tone very well. I would have liked to have seen more of that kind of thing as a soundtrack.
Well, and the music for the music style, think Brent, you've seen a little Flowers of Evil, and Steve, I don't know if you have.
No, I have not.
There's an atonal theme in there that is just like insanely nails on a blackboard, kind of like just makes your skin crawl. And this, I didn't get that kind of skin crawly, but I got that kind of, I understand what you're doing with that specifically to make it like this. So, I'd be curious to see how would you change to alter the music's impact to the visuals.
Because this is what I actually first got into AMVs, doing AMVs, is I would actually take movies like this with soundtracks I didn't like and like put my own soundtracks to it.
Pink Floyd's The Wall.
Might as well. But to the level of sound, one thing that, and I don't know if it means anything at all, but did any of you count the church bells?
Oh, I didn't count them, but I noticed they were
14.
14 church bells.
In other words, when the church bell was ringing, and it rings the time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's only supposed to go up to 12. It went up to 14.
Interesting.
Interesting.
The scene stopped.
Time is broken.
That could be. Could be also a Buddhist reference to something, perhaps.
True.
If you have 108 Buddhist hells, maybe you've got 14 somethings.
Or maybe back when Oshii made this, he knew that I was live, and he goes, "Let's tick Steve off by doing this."
Yeah, we'll just screw around with it. Because I think, what is it? How many stations of the cross are there? There's 12 stations of the cross.
Oh, I didn't think of
that. So 14 would be
there. There are 14 precepts of engaged Buddhism.
Oh.
There we go. Now we're getting it.
Love it. And the number of the counting shall be 14. 15 shalt thou not count, neither 13. Yeah, no, totally. That's very interesting. Huh.
As you had said earlier, it's pregnant with many, many things.
Yeah.
Many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I hear that about the just overall, like the soundtrack and the tone it takes. Well, and Matt's saying, there's such a thing as too abstract. You can go so abstract and symbolic that nothing makes sense, and there's just no pattern whatsoever. And I think that's one of the problems. It's one of the interesting things about soundtracks to me, actually, specifically, is that if the soundtrack doesn't really not match what you're trying to do, but the soundtrack can be distracting, even if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, as opposed to working with you to put you into the mood. And there are definitely points with the soundtrack where I was like, I could use this right now. I really could. I wouldn't mind. So. Cool. Was there anything else?
I can't ever really typically think of any soundtracks that I've heard that I haven't associated what I'm hearing, whether I like it or not. I mean, again, Flowers of Evil, that somebody, it wasn't like you had this creation of some sort, then somebody else in the production department said, we've got like this idol group that's on contract. What's this show about? Can we put this in there? And it's like, I usually associate that the music is particularly staged for that show for something. And whether it horrifies me or whether I love the hell out of it, it's my responsibility to try and figure out that part of it. It's like, why in the hell did you do that in that spot? Why does this sound like this? What are you trying to evoke from me? I know what I'm looking at, but like we know about all, like good horror films. If you cut the music score, a horror film is not horrifying because you have very little anticipation of what's coming up the jump scare if you don't have music leading up to that to build your anxiety. So watching, Angel's Egg, it's just like, what are you pulling out of me for this? What am I looking visually at? Right. What do you want from me? Let me go.
And the thought just occurred to me that somebody owns the soundtrack out there.
Oh yeah.
Probably.
Somebody says, listen to this, and plays it at a party.
This is somebody's favorite soundtrack.
Plays it at a party. Boy, wouldn't that be a Captain Buzzkill moment? Hey, everybody, you're enjoying this party? You're liking all this? Here, listen to this soundtrack. Hey, is it 7 p.m. already? Time to go home.
Okay, I'm not going to go off track just yet. Anything else you guys wanted to talk about? We'll save that for a little bit later.
It's actually, I would actually encourage people to watch it. Despite joking around and the frustration of how there is, you really are going to have to come at it on your own and figure it out on your own. And the best part of it is, I think, of this movie is being able to turn around and going, like we did here tonight, which is going, what in God's name do you think that was about? And just having a good discussion about that. And these anime or movies or things like that make you kind of just talk about it or think about it or some way, shape, or form. Kind of does a purpose like that. And I usually think it's a good thing. So I would encourage people to watch it. I do think it's a beautiful anime. The soundtrack to me serves a purpose at the very beginning, but then it just feels like I'm being hammered throughout the rest of it. But that's soundtrack aside, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth the time.
It's always good seeing an art house kind of film thing that's not the super popular center of attention at the moment, because it gives you appreciation for the medium.
Well put. I approach Angel's Egg as kind of like going to a museum and looking at a painting. Right? You can look at a painting and say, "Oh, look, it's a dude in a room." Moving on,
right?
That's Van Gogh's self-portrait, Brent.
Dude in a room, whatever. Pretty much. But like, if you sit down and like look at it and think about it and pay attention to it, you can pull out some interesting things about it. You can. I think there's fun to be had. There's not just fun's the wrong word. Fun's the wrong word for Angel's Egg. And there is intellectual meat, in Angel's Egg. There's stuff you can definitely extract out of this that is worth the time. I definitely agree.
Well, it is fun because we're sitting here having this discussion. This is a fun discussion about a film that Siskel and Ebert said it was a laugh riot from start to finish. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's the fun part. Is like watching this, dissecting it, ingesting what parts of it, looking stuff up about what you think. Some of the what was it, the egg metaphor? You can find an egg metaphor in the Kojiki and the Nihon Shoki.
Oh, interesting.
Which are two Japanese sort of ancient myth creation kind of idea books that I remember, studying in Japanese culture class in university. Those, I remember seeing those names before, but when I started looking into Angel's Egg, I'm like, Oh, there we go. Now things are starting to make some connections here.
Exactly.
So, and that's fun.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. Definitely is. Cool. So, what was the thing I wanted to mention? It was totally off topic. Oh yeah. There is a horror movie called Rock and Roll Nightmare, or The Edge of Hell. And the soundtrack so the premise is a hair metal band goes to a small farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere on sort of a band retreat to compose their next album, and of course get picked off one by demons. The soundtrack consists of either extremely cheesy hair metal band songs that they are playing or are on the radio, but are all clearly from this band, or for like minutes in a scene. That's the entire. So it's like it is a perfectly terrible movie in the sense that it is just all of these wonderfully cheesy things all thrown together into one movie, and it has a legendary ending. I will just put it that way.
Was it made by a trauma team from the old?
No, but it is of that level.
Toxic Avenger series.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. It's not quite the sort of intentionally gross out. Yeah,
right.
But it's definitely not Hollywood standard. It's on riff tracks.
It was all put on one credit card.
Mm-hmm.
All one credit card with $1,000 balance.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the best riff tracks ever, just because it is perfect fodder for riffing. It's great fun. But when we were talking about the soundtrack to Angel's Egg, I was like, what am I? Oh yeah, that is a soundtrack to Rock and Roll Nightmare.
Edge of Hell. Rock
and
Roll Nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
John McElthor is the main actor and singer and all that in that movie.
Is that a name I should know?
I have no idea. I just remember the name.
I've never heard it before.
Just John McElthor. Like, if that is not the most amazing, clearly made up name, it's pretty impressive. Cool. All right, that will do it. I think for our discussion of Angel's Egg. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
We are crawling up on 9. Yeah. Calling up on 9 p.m. Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Hey. One thing people don't realize about Japanese is that men don't sound like women in Japanese. Like, if you ever watch a Japanese person, like a Japanese guy talking in live action, their register is like down here all the time. Right. When they respond to stuff, they respond to stuff in here. It's very deep. And so, there's when they say hi, it's hi. It's not hey, hi there, which is the sort of stereotypical, and especially the anime female voice actress.
Hi.
They go really high up there, and it's just kind of like whenever I see, it's silly. Although, I will also
when
say,
you talk about deep, you can always talk about whenever you think of Toshiro Mifune talking.
Mm-hmm.
Deep, deep talking, very manly deep.
Yeah. Although Aya Hirano, the voice actress of Haruhi Suzumiya and Konada from Lucky Star and a bunch of other things, she has an absurdly high-pitched voice. She has like when I first saw her in live action, I assumed she was putting on an absurdly high-pitched like anime character voice, because she's like she's kind of up here as her normal pitch.
Is her speaking voice like her actual voice?
Normal speaking voice is quite high, and they cast her as Haruhi Suzumiya, which, if you'll recall, does not have a high-pitched voice. Right? She has a pretty... So she had to do that, and she had to sing in that voice.
Like down a register.
In a lower register.
In
Wow.
a lower register. So I'm like, wow, good on. Like I don't know how you do that. And there's actually a great interview with, not a great interview, but like she's coming out from the voice recordings, and she has to do rock in that first season of Haruhi Suzumiya, and like it's vocally rough just doing that voice, just singing that way, plus doing it in a lower register, plus acting as a kid. Don't know how you do that. Cool. All right.
How you do it is you do it with talent.
There we are. You got talent, kid.
Ability.
Exactly. Cool. Hey, Charming Catches. Good to see ya. So, have you guys been? How's your weeks been? Chat and gathered gentlemen. How have things been?
Another week has come and gone.
Mm-hmm.
Managed to score a 4-day weekend, so it's been a lot of
Nice.
There you go.
housework. I did find out the Blue Ridge Parkway is closed for quite great sections of it, and I ended up on the Great Mystery Tour today.
Oh, wow.
Because
That's good
the
to know.
places I wanted to go that were on the Blue Ridge Parkway, you can't really get to them easily other ways. So everybody piled in the car, all the dogs, everybody's excited. We're driving. There's a big closed barricade. I'm like, okay. Drive around. The access road, that's a state road, not the Blue Ridge Parkway that kind of travels along the side to get me to my destination, is closed by the county because they're doing road work. I'm like, okay. So I ended up driving like all the way down to like Smith Mountain Lake and around somewhere else. And eventually I'm like, if I just head that way, that should be like back where I came from, sort of. And blissfully, roads lead places that I know. So, an hour and some odd later, I get back and the dogs are like, "Are we there yet?" I pull up the house. They're looking at me like, "What are you, a jerk?" like, sorry.
Why
did we do this for an hour for you to just bring us home? I'm like, okay, well, we'll go for a long walk around here then. So we're gonna see how Sunday develops and how Monday develops. It might not go. This might not be a good sign for the whole entire weekend. So.
Stay home and watch anime.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's probably a really safe bet.
So night before last, we had I was here at the apartment, and my phone goes off, and I'm looking at it. It goes tornado warning, and I'm like, all right, tornado warning somewhere out in Maryland, wherever. And they're like, yeah, affected areas, Baltimore City.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's not a normal thing.
9th floor, not top floor, 9th floor.
Mm.
And I'm looking out the window, and everyone else across the way looking at their phones. So we're all looking at it and trying to find out what's going on. And I'm looking, and it apparently started in Ellicott City, which is about northwest. Mm. I saw the storm clouds like coming this way while I'm looking out this window. And the people over in the Belvedere, which is the big building, that way you can't see it there.
I see a light.
Yeah, that's
a light and a dog.
It's the angel egg.
Ian is guardian of the angel egg.
Angel egg, that's right. And so they're trying to look out, but they're facing this way. Mm. So they're all like craning their necks, and I'm just like the only one looking out at the right direction. And I see the edge of the storm, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like going, it's like they should be in the bathroom because this is a lot of glass I'm standing in front of, and it's coming right at me.
You don't want to John McClane that.
Right. And, I'm like standing there and I'm like going, oh, okay. When's the last time I was in a tornado? It was 5 in Fredericksburg, and that's not helping me. And so I'm just kind of turning off the lights and, just kind of edging towards the bathroom a little bit. And the alerts are literally coming off like every 30 seconds on the phone. It's just like, it's getting closer, it's getting closer, it's getting closer. I'm like going, oh, man. So I'm getting phone calls, of course, from family. Are you okay? Is everything okay there? I'm kind of like, yeah, everything's hunky dory, fine. Well, we heard there's a tornado touching down in the city. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I was like, oh my god, and finally I was getting to the point where I was just like going. The alerts were actually saying, go down to the bottom of your building and go into the basement.
Wow.
I'm getting these alerts every 30 seconds, right? It's like 5 o'clock, so everything's dark like this, like it's just like pitch black, and the rain starts coming down, and you hear a noise, and it's just this low rumbling ambient noise, and I'm just like, God damn it, because I'm in my PJs, and I'm just like, I'm not going down to the basement in my PJs, so I'm putting on clothes, and I'm about to get out the door, and then I get the alert, haha, didn't touch down, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like.
Thank you for not killing me, but thank you for panicking me.
So I look back out the window, and you see all the people in the Belvedere, who are trying to see the storm, just like going. I thought we were going to die here.
If you were a terrible person, Steve, a terrible person, you would have put your window up, looked at all the people across the way, and gone. And then watch them all go and then run. But you would have to be a terrible person to do that.
Exactly. Yes.
Well, I don't know if this makes me a terrible person or not, but when it gets loud in the alley back there, I do open up the window. I go, "The police are on their way."
Oh, nice.
I thought you were just gonna throw your chamber pot with night soil out on them. But that might be a little Middle Ages.
Yeah.
I walk in 9 stories to dump this here.
The 9-story nightfall.
Has a chance to hit really good speed on its way down.
Yeah. You get a lot of diffusion as well, so
exactly,
it's not a very compact strike area. It's like a half a block worth of matter.
Moving on.
Yes. We digress.
Trying to think this week. Been playing around a little bit with the mill, which has been fun. I think I can show you guys, actually. I think I have one of those over here. Okay.
I'm assuming not a grain mill.
Since I don't do Workshop Wednesday anymore, I gotta show things here. Actually, I'll probably switch over to the other screen so I can show it in more...
Now you said a mill. As in like a grain mill?
As in a CNC mill. As in...
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm having some interesting issues with my camera over here. Why is that not working? Cool. Okay. We may have to change everything. We're going to have to change everything. Great.
Oh, boy.
Well, that happens sometimes. This. Oh. Yeah. So this is CNC milled on a piece of wood. Sustained first and then milled. This is the board for the Royal Game of Ur, which is a board game discovered in, I think, Babylon. We don't actually have the rules for it, technically. We just have references to it. So folks have reconstructed the way they think it's supposed to go. So you can play this game, technically, it's like 5,000 years old. But yeah, this is an experimentation. This is an experiment in how to use a CNC mill. So first, no, this is not like the first thing, but this is the first like thing that actually worked with the mill. But it's fine. I still have most of my fingers. So
you have
exactly.
10. They're spares.
Right. Totally. Yeah. So
you don't need all of them.
Yeah. So just playing around with that to get a feel for how to do that. Might make some signs, some fun anime things. We'll see. But it's been a fun experimentation thing. So we're going to do that. Spend some time today watching Space Battleship Yamato. The original Space Battleship Yamato.
Okay.
Yep.
I was about to say, which one? There's like very 2020, what is it, 2150, 2050, and something other.
2055, I think it was.
Yeah, so it's like there's the original and then all these other subsequent ones.
Yeah. No, I'm going old school.
And there's the live action.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool.
Yeah, I got like 9 episodes in a while back, and had to take a break for the production values and general cheesiness of that show. But getting back into it, and I didn't realize at the time that that season 1's only 26 episodes, and that kind of gets to that big ending. So I'm like, okay, I can commit to that, and hopefully make some progress on that. So hopefully that'll be one of my projects over the next. I mean, if I push, I can get it done by the end of the weekend, but we'll see. That'll be kind of fun. Yamato is definitely a deserved classic, but its own unique experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
I adore it, but yes, it's.
You have to have a love for it. You have to have a love for it.
Well, it also helped to watch it 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because then it was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then now, now you're watching it with, God of High School and all these, these other things where it's just like such interesting CGI blending into things. Then you're watching Yamato and you're CGI. You're watching Yamato and you're like, well, they really were doing a great job for their time.
It's so true. 30 years, 30 plus years ago, and watching it back then as a kid, and you're watching it, and you're just like, "Oh my god, it's a huge station's got a hole in it, and just laser and all these aliens." And it's just like, oh, that's also awesome. And now you watch it, and you have that love for it, and you watch it, and you're just like, can make stop anime.
There's one shot in an episode I saw today where the captain goes down to the engine room and he walks up to a guy and has we cut to the guy, and apparently he's supposed to be working an engine, and he is literally doing this. Like, legs splayed, pointing the entire time, and just has this conversation with him. And it's like, what? And it's just very odd. And, it's the kind of thing you just don't notice when you're 8. And, it's okay, it's just a thing. But although there was an interesting thing I noticed, there's a shot of a bunch of the characters they'll have to fly. It's the big minefield, and they have to clear the mines. And so they all have to fly out from the Yamato, and there's this problem when people are very small. They're hard to see because they're basically little black dots on top of a big black thing that's in a big black space. So so they're white, like they just color them white for the first 6 frames, and then shift them into their actual color scheme. So you see these white blobs sort of come at you, and then all of a sudden they resolve into people and come at you, and it's like, I understand the problem solving in it, but it looks really bad.
If they could have done better, they would have, Brad. Give them
break. And that's the thing, is it's like, I can totally understand being a studio where anime is a decade old. Right, like they're still just figuring all this stuff out, and they're trying to do this ridiculously long, ridiculously complex show, and you got to solve the problem in the moment. Just one of those things where you look at it and you're like, "Whew, that was a rough one."
They can't all be Charged Man Ken.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
which I've not seen, so that I'm lost
good
on that one.
It's not a problem. That's not a problem. Remember last week or the week before when you were asking about why there's a girl with a knife? That's Charged Man Ken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No.
That's about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For those watching, Charged Man Ken is a show that Steve turned me on to. That's a weird way of saying it. That is it's a 70s, I think it's a 70s series, early 70s series, where they made a lot of bold decisions with their plot lines and how their characters act, and there's a lot of characters being very forceful with each other in various ways, and some strange plot lines that result in little girls trying to stab people. It's an odd one.
I like the statement bold decisions.
I've never seen up until this point. I've even years after having seen this for the first time, I've never really seen an anime that dealt with issues like spousal abuse.
Yeah,
in such a ham-fisted way, no pun intended. And it's literally like the end of that particular episode is I'm sorry I beat the crap out of you, my wife. I love you. We will stay together for the sake of our son. And the son is like traumatic because half the episode is him playing with a car outside of his room where the guy is just like, "You're stupid. You're an idiot." Just smacks it, and you're just like, "This is literally an anime that was sold to kids. This was something that kids saw on TV."
And it was not an ABC after school.
It was not. No.
Did it serve that purpose?
When the girl started with the Ginsu knife on her brother, Chargeman Ken, was because she played a record backwards.
Yes,
Can't have that. And had a post-hypnotic suggestion to kill her brother because she secretly hated him or whatever. So there's this great scene where the father's like got her like this, and she's with the knife trying to kill her brother. Then
this is why you don't listen to Ozzy Osbourne back.
No,
it's terrible.
One of my favorite episodes on that one is where there's a guy who had a bomb planted in his brain. The only way to resolve Chargeman Ken can resolve the situation as he's flying his airship and he's being attacked by aliens is he says, "I'm sorry, doctor," presses a button. The doctor falls out with the bomb in his brain. They were originally going to try and get him to a place to get the bomb out, and he goes, "I'm sorry, doctor, please forgive me." Boom. So the doctor falls out, screams all the way, hits the aliens from behind them, and blows up.
Wow.
And you have like this affinity for the doctor because he gives sweets to Chargeman Ken. Yeah, so he's a nice guy. But he had to blow him up. But
they weren't actually sweets; they were cough drops.
Oh yeah. Have you seen Zambot 3, Steve? Invincible Superman Zambot 3?
No, I have not.
That is the anime series wherein Yoshiki Tomino got his nickname Kill 'Em All Tomino.
Kill 'Em All Tomino.
Oh, okay. That's the one. All
right. I'm not sure how much I should reveal of this. So, and I think I mentioned this in like my anime panels in the past. It's a super robot show. 10-year-olds pilot giant robots to save the world. Classic 70s thing.
Yes.
78, I think, is when it came out. And evil xenophobic aliens trying to destroy the Earth. Classic thing. And then halfway through the show, they realize that isn't working. And we literally cut to the bad guys cackling about their new scheme and saying none of this is working because the Zambot 3 keeps getting in our way. So what we're going to do is we have our new plan. We're going to kidnap humans and implant time bombs in them and release them back into human society so they will explode randomly. And that starts happening. And then you get the plot line. Again, apologies for anyone who might be watching this, but I won't tell you how it turns out. The main character, this 10-year-old boy, has a childhood friend, a girl, who lives across the street.
I was about to make a joke about two people going to date and one of them exploding.
Yeah.
And that is a plot line. Like, they go there. And like one of the... It's one of those moments like, you'll never forget. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but like, he figures it out. He realizes and she doesn't know yet. And he has to decide like what to do. And you just see the anguish on his face and just the horror of the situation he's been put into. Of, where do we go with this? Yeah, and it's
when your crush explodes, what do you do?
Yeah, it's not a happy show. It's not a happy show.
Well, the times you've talked about it before, where it's like 10-year-olds in robots, that's just, that's not going to end up psychologically well for any of the kids.
No. It does not end up psychologically well for any of the characters who survive that show. I'll put it that way. The few that do, it does not end well for them. Oh gosh.
Man.
Yeah. No.
They should do a 30-year after the fact of what happened to the heroes of this anime. You just see them at the bar.
Yeah, that would be difficult considering how little of Earth is left after the show has ended. It's one of those endings. It's like, oh, wow. Yeah, it's a big dark black ending. This was
the sort of the Macross ending where you get the bombardment that just is world ending.
Yeah.
Nice.
And yeah, and I say this because Zambot 3 is one of those shows that I think is worth going into, knowing it takes a dark turn. And it is clearly Tomino saying, how dark can we get? Like, how far can we go in anime these days? Like, what's the limit? And he explores that limit very strongly. God.
Somebody funded it. Somebody funded
well,
the adventure.
This is the thing.
There was a budget.
This is the thing, is that I have not been able to find out, maybe somebody in the chat room knows. It takes such a sudden turn, and it is so different from the beginning of the show. There are rumors, and again, I don't know if anyone's found out, that Tomino just did it. He was making a standard Super Robot show and then decided, heck, I'm just going to go as dark as I want to be right now. And nobody, expected it. He just...
Doesn't that end your funding in the future when people are like, your next project? They're like, no.
Well,
you're not doing this twice.
Well, can you imagine being the artist and then being called into the weekly meeting and seeing the storyboards and okay, so we got oh my god.
Episode 25 starts with like a train platform and a guy on the train platform and then explosion. And then street and explosion. Again, imagine the artist going,
I can just see all the heads of the people in the meeting turning to Tomo as they go,
are you sure this is really where you want to go with this?
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, his next show was Gundam, so it didn't turn out very well for him, sadly. Who knows? So yeah, I'm gonna have to. I'm experiencing this week's technical difficulty, which is that my camera is not showing up. My other camera for everything else. And unfortunately, the only way of fixing that is to restart OBS, which means the stream will go down briefly. So everyone watching, please stand by for hopefully less than 30 seconds as I restart this software. Everything else should be fine. We'll stay on the call and so forth. But apologies. Please stand by for a moment. We will get this fixed. Cross fingers, this will reconnect to the same stream. It won't just end it.
So
I'm seeing things.
You're seeing things? Good.
I'm seeing things.
So I think we're back. Hopefully. That did seem to fix the camera on the other side, so that is
I'm seeing things blurry. Why is that?
Things blurry. That's odd. I cannot answer
end.
that. Quite possible. But I think we're back. I think we're good on that. Which is a relief because y'all hear that? It is a great time for a bio break. Thanks for the reminder. I gotta do some setup anyway. So hello, chat room, as we get news things going. We can talk a little bit. Guys in anime radio referred to as diabetes. Yeah, I can hear that. Apparently, Victory Gundam is a show in which Tomino just kind of kills off female characters episode by episode. I got like 10 episodes into Victory, and I was like, I understand this show's tone. I have a good sense of it, and I do not want to watch these characters die one by one. I'm good. Just pull this up. Look at there. We will have that. And I can pull up my information. And we can actually start talking about stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah, the thing about Tomino is that a lot of people don't appreciate is like that news story from last week. You know, when he tells a war story, it is about how terrible war is. And one of the things that happens in war is that people die. And so people are going to die in his war stories. Like, that is the deal. And it's not going to be necessarily heroic or dramatic. It's probably going to be dramatic. But it can just be, guess what? A stray shot hit you, you're down. You're gone forever. That's what war is. It ain't pretty. And something that people should be aware of in Tomino's just kind of view of things. It's one of the things I think it makes him interesting. I personally believe. Record of a Fallen Vampire. I do not recognize that. I'm going to pull it up here. I did read the first two volumes, the first two light novels of No Game, No Life, like last week. Record of a Fallen Vampire. I have not read that. Fallen Vampire. Yeah, No Game, No Life was... It had it had its creepy aspects. The novels, at least. I haven't seen the anime. That's actually dope. Yes. But also the fact that he tricks a girl into forcing her to fall in love with him. And then continues to just let that ride without ever doing anything about her, like very much against her will. And he never tries to resolve that or get her out of that. And she just still has to stay in love with him forever, apparently. No Game, No Life discussions. Yeah. And then the art. There are several pieces of art there's a piece of art in the first and second volume that are problematic. Where I could see, I mean, it's not like explicit, but where it's suggestive. And it's like, and both of them involve the sister. So, yeah. I was mentioning this to Steve a while back. It's one of those things where, as somebody who is aware of Japanese culture and is aware of how goofy anime can be with this stuff and how much it kind of pushes the envelope, I could see that, but it definitely pushes the envelope. It's like, wow, even by anime and manga standards, this is pushing the line. Oof. Thank you, Johnny Sketches. Appreciate that. Yep. And that's why I read it, because I was kind of like, what's the deal? And it's like, okay, yeah. And this is a novel, to be clear, not the manga. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, and then there's just some, well, anyway. Let's not, wait a sec. Okay, good. Exactly. All right, let's, I think I can now switch over. Yeah, that's work. I think we're all working now. Imagine that. It's a good thing. Let's get started then with the news. Welcome, everyone, to the latest anime and manga news for the week ending September 5th, 2020. And our first news story this week isn't the usual anime announcement, but it definitely relates to an anime you are likely familiar with. Start brushing up your Hare Hare Yukai dance moves, because a new novel has been announced in the Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya series, although there's an asterisk there. Nagaro Tanigawa and Noisy Ito's new addition to the franchise will be titled The Intuition of Haruhi Suzumiya, and is set to debut on November 25th of this year. Yen Press will release the novel digitally in English simultaneously with its Japanese release, which is awesome. It also plans to release a physical version at a later date. Pre-orders for the Japanese version of the novel will open on Tuesday. The novel is the first in the series in 9.5 years, and it's actually a collection of 3 stories, including one brand new one. The previous stories it includes are the Guesswork Numbers short story that appeared in Noisy Ito's art book back in 2013, and the Seven Wonders Overtime short story that debuted in Kadokawa's one-time The Sneaker Legend magazine in 2018. We don't have a synopsis for the brand new stories yet, only the title, Tsuruya's Challenge. The original 11 novels were published between 2003 and 2011 and has more than 20 million copies in print. The iconic KyoAni anime adaptation premiered back in 2006, including 2 seasons and a movie. The novels have also inspired 2 net anime spin-offs, as well as several manga series and video games, and of course the other TV anime spin-off, The Disappearance of Nagato Yuki-chan. So this was, I think, a bit of a surprise to everyone that Haruhi is coming back. I think it's pretty awesome.
I'm glad for it.
Uh-huh.
Is there gonna be more anime associated with it too? Come on.
Considering it's a single short story, I don't know. Well, this is the interesting thing. I think it's worth bringing up. I think one of the questions is, given the fact that there are 11 novels out there, there's certainly enough material, it sounds like, for another series.
Yeah.
It could, this could be cross promotion. It could be, let's get it going. Even though we don't have like a lot of new material, let's get a novel out there. Then we can sort of say, "Oh, hey, there's a novel. Let's do an anime series as well."
So what this means for me is that I can't believe I'm actually going to say this. I've only watched a couple episodes. So
okay.
So I'm going to have to watch this now.
Excellent.
I've seen. I got a good idea of what it is, and just because how can I?
Yeah, exactly.
But it looks like
this means Steve will be dancing for us.
Hey. You should see me on TikTok.
When you're doing the Macarena, then you're going to do the Haruhi.
So, strong recommendation: watch it in broadcast order.
Broadcast order.
Yes, because the broadcast order is not chronological order, and on the Japanese DVD release, it's in chronological order, while in the American release, they actually released it in both orders, which is rather awesome. So you actually got like 2 sets of discs, one in broadcast order, one in chronological order, which blows my mind.
Well, what I watched on Crunchyroll, then I have no idea.
Ooh.
I thought it was chronological order. I didn't know there was a broadcast order.
Yeah, the broadcast order bounces around. You see things; those episodes do not happen. It starts with the adventures of Mikuro Asahina, the magical girl thing.
Okay, yeah.
That's episode 1. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I want you to imagine before we go back to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So does the Endless 8 happen? The Endless 8, does that happen in chronological order, or does the Endless 8?
Yeah, that happens, but it happens later.
Okay, because as I say, if you did that like shuffle, like you hit like
randomize
on
then
it would be very interesting. How I could see how then I didn't, I wouldn't want to like shoot myself watching like the 5th time through if you spread it out across many different things. I got
No, the Endless 8 was sequential.
Yeah,
but I want you to imagine. In 2006, this new anime comes out, and it's the Adventures of Mikuro Asahina. And it's that. Like, you have no context. You're just watching this poorly made magical girl thing. And then it ends, and it's not that at all. And you're like, What show am I watching? What are they doing to me?
What did I get into? What's happening here?
And the next episode is nothing like that at all.
That's really interesting because I honestly I think Crunchyroll I think they
so.
showed it
chronological
order. I'm not entirely sure that they were doing the simulcast yet. If they were simulcasting, it might have been broadcast order.
In fact, I don't know. In fact, I'm sure they did it in chronological order because two folks in here came over to my house a while back for a little mini con, and we watched Haruhi Suzumiya, and we went on to Crunchyroll, and it's like, oh, we can watch Haruhi Suzumiya, and it was in broadcast order, and I was like, or it was in chronological order, and I was like, no. And I went and I found the broadcast order so I could show them the episodes in broadcast order. And the reason I suggest that is because they reveal things in a very deliberate way through broadcast order, where it increases the suspense and adds some interesting other little bits in there that flows in a direction that I think is fundamentally more interesting than chronological order. Nothing wrong with chronological order, but you get another layer to that experience in broadcast order.
All right, broadcast order, it will be for me then.
Yep.
I might have to go back and watch it in broadcast order. I feel like I might have missed
really cool.
something.
It's very interesting.
But of course, the trick is going to be finding the list of what the broadcast order is, because I think the only places I can find it, it's all chronological in any place it exists that I'm aware of.
Yeah, Wikipedia was the only place I could find it. They actually have it listed out there. But yeah, more Haruhi, yay, good thing. Looking forward to finding out what else is going on, and that is certainly a franchise that can go in practically any direction.
Yep.
All right, so let us move right along from that. Crunchyroll's, the October issue of Kodansha's monthly shonen magazine revealed on Friday that the Farewell, My Dear Kramer girls soccer manga, not a Seinfeld spinoff, is inspiring both an anime film and a TV anime. The manga's creator is Naoshi Arakawa, known for something you may have heard of, Your Lie in April. Both the film and the TV anime are set to premiere in April of 2021 and will tell the story of two different times in the life of the characters. The TV series will tell the manga's main story set during high school, the right half of the teaser image you see there, while the film will adapt the previous 2-volume Sayonara football manga, which follows the characters during middle school, which is the other half of that teaser image. Kodansha serializes the manga simultaneously in Japanese and English, and describes the story as follows. Quote, with no soccer accomplishments to speak of during the entirety of Sumire Suo's junior high school years, the young ween gets an old offer. Suo's main rival, Midori Sosejak Midori, invites her to join up on the same team in high school with a promise that she'll never let Suo play alone. It's an earnest offer, but the question is whether Suo will take her up on it. Thus, the curtain opens on a story that collects an enormous cast of individual soccer-playing personalities, end quote. Seki Takuno is directing the anime at Liden Films, with Natsuko Takahashi writing the script. The anime will be distributed by Toei. Arakawa debuted the manga back in 2016, and its 12th volume was published in June. Have you all seen Your Lie in April? Because I have not.
I have not.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I hope artistically it's Your Lie in April, not thematically like Your Lie in April, because then it's going to be more difficult for me to really get into it.
Oh, interesting.
Because Your Lie in April, it's not a happy rom-com.
Okay, yeah.
It's a thinking piece mixed with emotional connections, and it's not light. So this looks like it should be light.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a lie. Exactly. That pivot point where you're like, oh, this is great. Oh, she's got bone cancer. So she can't make the finals because she's dying.
Yurapei seems like a fun character. What's her backstory? Oh.
I hope it's not anything like that. I hope it is just sweetness and light.
Mm-hmm.
or Sweetness and Lightning.
Yeah. But yeah, this sounds like a fun one. Hopefully, and I like the fact that it sounds fun, but it's also an interesting sort of direction to take, where you can adapt both the essentially the backstory part of it as the movie, and the TV series can focus on the main high school drama stuff.
And am I missing something sports wise? What is a Kramer?
I have no idea.
I know what a goalie, a sweeper, a forward, a midi. I know what any of those positions
and
are.
Maybe it's Kramer.
No idea.
I'm
which case, that's kind of a weird thing. What do you do? I'm a crammer.
Ah.
I cram the ball in the net. Oh, good.
There's a German soccer/football star, Dietmar Kramer, and it's a reference to that person.
Interesting.
So fair enough. I learned something new today. There we go.
What did you learn on the show tonight, Brent? I learned this
segment is done.
Star.
Boom. All right, moving on to more anime news. Crunchyroll's Virtual Expo has been taking place this weekend, and unsurprisingly, it's brought us an announcement for a new Crunchyroll anime series in the works. The streaming service is partnering with Adult Swim for a third anime project, this time an adaptation of the classic Sega game franchise Shenmue. The action-adventure game is set in 1980s Japan and China and follows teenage martial artist Ryo Hazuki as he searches for his father's killer. The first game debuted on the Dreamcast in 1999, with a sequel coming out in 2001. Shenmue 3 wasn't released until all the way in 2019 after raising $6 million in a Kickstarter in 2015. The new adaptation will have 13 episodes, will air on both Crunchyroll and Toonami in the US. Telecom Animation Film, providing animation production, with Shenmue creator and game designer Yu Suzuki serving as the project's overall executive director. Crunchyroll promised to reveal further details at a later date, obviously, so Shenmue fans will have to keep their eyes peeled for more updates. And I'm kind of intrigued by this. Shenmue, I know a little bit about the storied history of that video game franchise and its sort of troubled history. Because Shenmue 1 and 2 were, from what I understand, cult hits. So successful, very, very passionate fan base, but not, hugely, hugely successful. But certainly people knew about it back in the day. And this is where my information gets hazy. Something happened. The creator always wanted to do a Shenmue 3, and it never materialized. And apparently there was, backstory conversations. People just wouldn't let him make it, basically. And then back in 2015, he was like, let's go to Kickstarter and see if that'll make it work. And sure enough, it made it work. It was, I think, the most successful video game Kickstarter in history at that point, something along those lines. Certainly one of the big ones. It led to the return of this sort of classic thing, one of those things where no one thought we'd ever get a Shenmue 3, right? It has just been so long, and finally got a Shenmue 3. So I think it's an interesting franchise to pick, something that has seen a resurgence, so now it's kind of a good time to come back to it. I don't know.
Toonami's audiences, I think, is partially old now.
Mm-hmm.
And
partially old.
There's
only half of you is old.
That's right. And so I think that's probably why they're doing it. I mean, it would make sense to put it on Toonami. I mean, honestly, as I was listening to it, I don't know anything about the video games, but I was like, I'll probably bite.
And that's what I was going to say. It's was it a cult hit Japan or a cult hit everywhere?
Oh, that's a good point. I think it was a cult hit outside of Japan and more of a hit in Japan. It was more successful in Japan.
So that there's more relation to why it would be. Mm-hmm. Crunchyroll would settle on that to be one of their new franchise things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Which Crunchyroll with their new tiered program, do you know the kind of chaos that caused when they released that? Wow. Trying to log back into the app, trying to figure out where your tier was on the app and what parts of the it's just for a solid week. It was just all my queue disappeared, my history disappeared.
Wow.
But if I went into their main screen to the shows and clicked on it, it would show that I had watched episodes, even though it wouldn't bring anything up. And then I got my queue back and I got my history back, but I click into a show and it would say I didn't watch any of it. Like, I'm going to scream. So Crunchyroll's doing things.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of things.
No, I lucked out. I didn't use it for the past like week or two, and then logged in like today, and everything was fine. So
yeah,
it dodged that bullet.
Yeah, last week was not much fun.
Oh, that sucks. But good luck on the Shenmue adaptation, Crunchyroll. Hope that works out for everyone. Let's see here. Exactly. Next up, HappyNet has unveiled a new project this week featuring pairs of pretty boys that will reinvigorate people's frozen hearts. Their words, not ours. The Onagai Patron Sama project will consist of a main story told through a net anime and a side story of VTuber videos. The story itself centers on pairs called Pat Raisers, which each consist of a sugar and their patron. Again, their words, not mine. The net anime will tell the story of the main character pair, the two in the center of the key image, while the VTuber videos will feature more looks into their daily life as well as the lives of the other characters. The project will launch on its own YouTube channel starting in October with the new main story and side story videos premiering each week. Whenever I do stories like this, I feel old. I feel completely out of touch with modern, youth culture, what the youth are doing these days with their
Those
Bobby
youngins.
Socks and their hot rods.
All their Game Boys and
Yes.
stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, they're Ataris.
Cellular mobile phone things. Oh.
And I've got to give this points for originality. I think it is interesting to do sort of a anime and VTuber video matchup there. Who knows if it's gonna work out? But I think it's a clever way of sort of integrating to media at least.
The more you sort of split out parts of this, the harder it's going to be to keep people who have a short attention span anyway to sort of dial in to both at once to follow it. You know what I mean? It's
It seems like
it depends on the quality of the initial launch too. I mean, if it's really a great launch, maybe you can generate enough following in both streams to get it to fly. But if it is even weak in any part, you're gonna have people losing interest on the subsequent link into it, and it's just not gonna fly. But who knows? I wish them luck.
Yeah, totally.
It just seems like a mess. It just seems like a mess to me to have those kind of platforms operating simultaneously. And I was just thinking, speaking of old, I remember when we had to draw our own anime to watch it.
We watched animals and pretended they were animated.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretended they were anthropomorphic.
Look at the lifelike movement. It's amazing.
Yeah. We've
This would be something where I can just see myself going, okay,
Yeah.
Well, I just see that happening too, and I don't think that's a generational thing. I think that's too many for people to really pay attention to, and then be able to go on elsewhere to other things.
Well, I don't think the intent is that you're watching them simultaneously, though.
And that's not what I meant.
Okay.
It's like bouncing back and forth, one to one, and just after a while, you're just like,
one more thing
Right,
to
true.
consume amongst a
Gotcha.
vast smorgasbord of things to consume, and not to say crap, but stuff like that gets lost.
Yeah.
I mean, if not that YouTube isn't a wonderful thing. Thank you, YouTube. But at least for me, if I've got a few minutes and I'm going to watch something on YouTube, it knows by what I've watched before that it gives me a sort of listing of things, and I'll see something that I'm like, oh yeah, I watched that history piece a couple days ago, and there's another history piece. Oh, there's one below it that's cat videos, and then it leads me down the rabbit hole, and I have no idea where I've gone.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like that's kind of one of those things where you're going to have somebody like really dialed in on
and
to then follow the VTube thing.
And that could be the generational thing, or at least the difference in approach, because there are people out there who religiously follow their VTubers, right? And as soon as their new one launches, like that is what they do, and they care very deeply. So maybe they're going after that crowd. Whether that will work or not, I don't know. Maybe it's that kind of idea is it's an idol basically. So of course you're
gonna have to be good. I mean, to generate that them to want to follow it consistently.
Sure. Who knows? We'll have to check it out and find out. So let's see here. Mobile games and anime are overlapping a lot recently, not only in collaborations and crossovers, but with games getting their own anime specials as well. First up this week, Sega and Delightworks have announced a new mobile entry in the Sakura Wars franchise, and have begun streaming a 24-minute anime for the game along with the announcement. The new dramatic role-playing game, Sakura Kakume Hanasaku Otometachi, is set in a Tokyo troubled by disaster, damage, and demon attacks, where a special government force of cute girls simultaneously protects the people and puts on popular live performances, as you do. And this is Sakura Wars. Like, if you ever, like, that's Sakura Jackson, right there. Like, if just everyone knows. In Steampunk Mecha, too. That's a part of it as well. The special anime was produced by Cloverworks and is streaming on Sega's YouTube channel, but only has subtitles in Japanese. Another upcoming mobile game anime episode was also announced this week. Bandai Namco Entertainment has partnered with Kamikaze Doga to produce a 15-minute anime short adapting the prologue to the Tales of Crestoria smartphone game. A short English-subbed preview for the anime episode titled Tales of Crestoria, The Wake of Sin is now streaming on Bandai Namco's YouTube channel. So dark. The full short will air worldwide on October 18th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time and show Kanata and Misela setting off on their journey, apparently. Kamikaze Doga previously released several concept videos for the game in 2018. The game launched in July of this year in both Japanese and English and has an overall theme of sin, with the sin-burdened main character striving to protect someone close to him. So, more stuff, more anime stuff coming, little promo stuff, which I always think is interesting, because you get these little, like, one-off anime things here and there.
Still love the protecting the city while singing. Like,
No, this is the thing. So these girls are hired. Well, they test in to piloting Steampunk Mecha, and their cover is they perform in the Takarazuka Review. So
their cover.
So they have one big troupe of singing, dancing girls and doing all of this dramatic acting, and then and they all have to run out and get into their mecha and go out and that is the premise of Sakura Wars. I don't understand.
See, I like listeners where it's just like you've got people with their gear and they're fighting the earless. That's it. It's like there's not any kind of premise or anything about like secretly hiding anything. It's like they just do this thing and fight bad things.
And in fairness,
and there's music.
Yes. Okay. And in fairness, like this goes back to the 90s, right? Like this is not a new Moe thing. Like this has been, so it's like
never watched Sakura Wars. I have this vision of just like, was it 4 girls on stage doing their dance, doing their song. We're singing about Mecha destroying evil bad guys, and then the alarm sings, and there you go. Oh, we have to go now. They run off and crowd, and then they go
jump
and
into giant mecha. Yeah,
that's right behind the stage, right?
Yeah.
Let me get it. They're loaded in truck right behind the stage.
I do not remember that, but probably. Yeah, and Sakura Wars is a legitimately fun franchise, but it's unique.
That's a good way to put it.
Definitely unique. Let's see here. Moving on. Kyoto Animation's second special episode based on their mascot character is now available for free streaming on the NHK World website. Baja's Studio, Baja and the Sea, originally aired on NHK July 23rd to coincide with the Marine Day holiday in Japan. The anime special also centers around the holiday, following the adorable Baja, as he explores the sea and meets various marine life. The first Baja Studio anime aired last December, and the second episode was announced back in April of 2019. The episode is offered to fans who pre-ordered tickets to the This Is What We Are Now, it's the first festival in 2 years fan event with Animation DO, which was set to take place last fall. Those events ended up canceled and repurposed due to the fire, however, and the second Baja Studio was shipped with the This Is What We Are Now, the Complete Works 2019 book and Blu-ray disc set. The episode's available on NHK World for streaming with English subtitles through September 9th, though, so head on out there to check it soon. And this kind of ties back to the earlier thing. There are so many of these little promo things that are just kind of scattered out there that hopefully eventually get released like this. But it's just, my gosh, how would you know that these existed unless you happen to be to come across the article in ANN?
Right. That's the kind of interesting part.
But the thing is that as you know, talking about Marine Day, I'm like, you know, in Japan they have these really cool holidays or festivals, whatever, and they act on them. Unlike here in America, we go, okay, it's Marine Day. Another reason to drink, you
Arbor
know.
Day.
I mean, it's Marine Day, yeah, you know. And Marine Day, you get this like push out of an anime or a game or something, and there's something to it. So I just think it's kind of nice because, you know, somebody out there is just like, it's almost Marine Day, and there it is. Sure thing, you know?
Totally.
Here in America, it was just like, nah, back to work. You know,
I didn't see any floats or parades for National Donut Day.
Donuts.
I was torn up about that. Yeah. Donuts.
Need to start doing more celebrations, I think, of these things. Like make them a big deal. I totally agree. Let's see. Now, physical distribution of anime might be slowing down in the age of streaming, but that doesn't mean it's died out for good. Crunchyroll announced this week that it has partnered with Sentai Filmworks, quote, to make it easier to bring your favorite anime series home, end quote. The two companies have joined forces for a new home video and electronic distribution partnership, with 4 anime titles announced to kick it off. Food Wars: The Fourth Plate, Ascendance of a Bookworm, yay, Grand Belm, and World Trigger. The series will appear as a mix of both subbed and dubbed content. Sentai's CEO commented on the new partnership, saying, quote, since at least 2011, Sentai and Crunchyroll have collaborated to bring exciting content to anime fans in new and innovative ways. Through this latest content partnership, Sentai is thrilled to empower fans to own their favorite Crunchyroll shows on select Blu-rays and our award-winning premium box sets, end quote. In other words, we're going to be bringing Crunchyroll shows to disc. Hey, maybe this will kick off a resurgence Perhaps this will kick off a resurgence in physical anime sales. Who knows? At least I'm sure that is what Crunchyroll and Sentai would like to see. Now, I know the three of us, we like our discs. We like our physical media.
I was just going to say, stuff tangible.
Although I will admit I'm probably the least physical of the three. That's a weird phrase. But point being, I think... So, how many people are like us? That is the question, I think.
Yeah.
I would go so far as to say I have maybe 2 or 3 anime discs entirely.
Really? I did not expect that.
I buy more figures. Mm-hmm. Figures and merch goods kinds of things. Mm-hmm. I don't typically end up with the DVD series.
What attracted you to buying those series?
Well, initially because there wasn't any merch that was available and kind of stuff, and I don't really want like a Nagisa, like Nendoroid or anything from like Glenad because I couldn't handle that. But then it also a style of minimalism in that I have a vast collection of DVD movies. Mm-hmm. That I bought because I liked the DVD film or the film, and I don't ever watch the DVD ever again. So the sort of minimalist perspective, it's like, okay, I'm going to acquire this, and what's going to happen? It supports the industry, which is why I get merch. But who's going to get this when I don't ever watch it again? people that don't watch anime, and they're going to be like, yard sale? It's going to go, I'm going to get the premium box set with all the pluses and perks, and it's going to go for $5 on a trash table when I'm gone. And it's just like, I don't need to deal. I don't need to leave that to somebody else to deal with.
So I'm the target audience. As you were reading this off, and I was just like, oh, okay. Where's my wallet? I'm like the guy. I'm like McGurk from Home Movies buys swords at 4 a.m. in the morning because it seemed like a good idea. And but you should see. I'm in my bedroom right now, but out there I have my entirely large DVD movie collection. I'm a cinephile. I actually do watch maybe a quarter of it, but you're right, John. Most of it I don't even look at again. And the DVD anime, I actually use it. I know that I can get it on streaming and use it in the way that I, like AMV or some creative project that I'm kind of doing with whatever it is. But I am that guy at the con that's prowling through the $5 bin, and you said yard sale.
Yeah.
There I am. Take my money, because I like the tangible physical thing of having it, and then the surprise of maybe there's some interesting stuff like on the Fully Cooley discs that I have. I didn't realize how much not so much a director's cut kind of things, but actual interviews and stuff on there that are just really amazing. And like the Metropolis have that has the little mini disc that just has all chock full of information, stuff like that. So I'm one of those guys. Okay, look, and we went to, kind of ages me, when we went from records to 8-tracks, when we went from records to cassettes, I was the guy who went to cassettes last. When we went from cassettes to CDs, I'm the guy who got into CDs last. And so, I'm that guy. They'll be like 20 years from now, go, do you have a working DVD player? I do. Here's a disc for $25. I want it. That'll be me. So this is me. I'm the target audience.
And I do want to point out, I have found a lot of some of my favorite anime by trawling through DVD bins at conventions for that weird $5 anime that I've never heard of, no one else has ever heard of, and I picked up and watched it. In fact, some folks in the chat might recognize Shattered Angels. That is how I found Shattered Angels, which is a whole other story which we won't get to right now. But yeah, you can find some really neat stuff through that. I completely agree there.
I did that, and Brent actually at the Last Anymore in one of the panels, you said, "Oh, by the way, there's a guy out there who's selling like DVDs for like $1, but it's like the second volume or whatever." I'm like, "Ooh, okay."
And if I had the room to scout around and take the 10 volume DVD set, and I can find one here and 8 over there and 6 over there. You know what I mean? Again, that's my form of minimalism, is like, I don't physically have the space for all that in and of itself. Even though DVDs are flat, Blu-rays are flat, you can stack them up. But it's like, it's one of those things of getting other merch. That's a extra thing to have, and it's like, I can't go that far.
Yeah. Chat, if you want to see my anime collection after we're done with the news, I will do that. Meanwhile, moving on to the final news story of the night. If you've ever wanted to go on an anime pilgrimage, especially to the locations of KyoAni's Hyoka, this last announcement might be for you. The Anime Tourism Association is organizing a virtual tour of Hyoka's real-life setting, Takayama City, Gifu. A 3D model of the association's mascot, Junrei-chan, will join viewers on a virtual reality tour through the anime's locations. The tour will be properly unveiled at this year's Kyoto International Manga and Anime Fair on September 19th and 20th, which will be the first major event held in person in Japan since the COVID lockdown. Yes, a manga and anime fair. It'll be distributed for free exclusively through the VR video streaming app Blinky, which I've never heard of before. The Anime Tourism Association was founded in 2016 as a partnership between Katakawa and various travel and tourism companies as part of their goal to attract tourists and encourage regional revitalization projects across Japan. They reveal a list each year of noteworthy anime pilgrimage sites. The 2020 list, which was revealed last October, included Hyoka's setting, along with 110 other anime-related locations. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. So, let me ask you all this. Which favorite anime location would you like to see a VR tour of? Where would you like to tour in VR?
Well, considering that Kira has already done a first-person review of Osai for Girls of Panzer.
Nice.
Gosh,
Yep.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
What else I'd like to
I
see?
can't even. Jesus. I have so many.
Yeah.
God.
I'd like to see Kamichu. I'd like to see where that was set up.
Mm-hmm.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
Keon, like Sean said,
Yeah,
would be cool.
That Keon leaped to my mind as well. That's kind of the. I don't know if it's the easy answer, but it's kind of the one where, oh, I know that school exists. I know we can go there. It'd be a fun thing to do, right? Like that. That's totally obvious. I'll tell you the one that leapt to mind. This is the weirdest answer I think I could possibly give to this, and everyone's gonna groan when I say it. Grave of the Fireflies. I would like to see a recreation of that setting.
Oh.
Because that is a place you can't go to.
Wow. Yeah. That'd be like saying in the quiet corner? No.
Oh,
in this corner of the country?
Yeah.
This corner of the world. That
Yeah.
going there. Like
And
pre-atomic Hiroshima. Like,
yeah.
Well, we can put you on a subway post while someone cosplaying dying for you. If you
yeah, no.
That's all right.
No.
It's all right.
That's a little much.
Mm-hmm.
Barefoot Gen? No.
No, let's not do that
No.
one. No. All right, let's set the difference. My Name is Totoro. Like late 50s, early 60s rural Japan.
Yeah.
How about the bathhouse and Spirited Away?
Ooh,
No, that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. There is going to be a theme park that might have that.
That's true. Yeah. Ghibli
Be a
fan.
weird. Wouldn't that be a weird experience to go in and take the cat bus to an actually functional Spirited Away bathhouse where you bathe in the Spirited Away bathhouse?
Mm-hmm.
That would be weird.
That would definitely be weird.
Yeah. And No Face would pop up in various places while you're sitting in the bath relaxing. God, yeah. Gold. Yeah. Creepy.
Did I ever tell you guys the story of Adam Savage's story about cosplaying No Face?
I've heard it and I watched his video on it.
Cool.
TED Talk.
TED Talk.
Was it TED Talk?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you guys are curious, check out Adam Savage's TED Talk about playing No Face. It's a cool thing.
Wow.
Now it makes me want to go up to every like full-bodied costume character and be like, "Are you somebody famous?" Yeah.
Likely.
Who's in there?
Yeah.
You Adam Savage?
Well, and Adam talks about this. He said the problem now is that, every convention he goes to, if anyone knows that he's there, they now have an eye out for somebody with a really good costume. So, but a really good full body costume, right? Where somebody's,
Right.
and there are only
Yeah.
so many of those. So, as soon as he goes onto the floor, like within 5 minutes, somebody's found him because they're just going up to every person with a good custom costume and saying, "Are you Adam Savage? No, you Adam
Same.
Savage."
Exactly.
Which is one of the reasons why he did bad Matrix cosplay one year, where he got like a Halloween store Matrix cosplay costume, put that on and went through, and he actually got less interruptions than usual because it was like, I can't possibly be Adam Savage. Like he would never go in public.
He wouldn't have that crap on.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, totally.
I'm trying to think of what other ones.
Yeah.
Gosh, how about Gundam? What are the orbital platform? Never mind.
Actually, you know what? I would love to be like in a side. Like I think just the vista inside a colony would be pretty awesome.
That would be pretty freaky.
Mm-hmm.
What else? I mean, there's so many of them that are just random, everyday kinds of places that it's really hard. Like some
Tokyo.
of the like they go, yeah. I mean, they go to Kyoto and they go to the it's not the Golden Pavilion, King Kakuji, whatever the heck it is. It's the golden pagoda that sits on a lake.
Yeah, and
it's like that's already a thing. I mean, it's you know what I mean. It's not one of those things where it's like, okay, walking home from school and here's this street that's got the little concrete walls and there's an intersection. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, that's probably a billion different places. I'm sure somebody grew up in a place like that, but you know what I mean? If there's one of those in Tokyo, one of those in Sapporo, one of those in Kyoto, you know what I mean? Any one of them you could substitute.
Yep.
It's like, so finding an iconic, you know, like what is it? The thing, the Joker stairs.
Right.
Finding something that is so very specific and so very, you know, visually impactful that you would then want to go see it would probably be just interesting trick.
Like I'm thinking back on Evangelion is a good example of where like other than like various like the hangar and so forth, like Tokyo 3 is a city, like it's buildings, so there's not really much on the surface that's iconic. You can certainly do again, you know, Unit 1 hangar, that kind of thing,
right?
But otherwise, yeah, it's funny. It is meant to be kind of generic in that way.
The only thing
where
I can think of, like, for me to visit was if they would have to recreate it. They would have to recreate the various, you know, from 1700s, 1800s. Like when I watched Miss Hokusai, the way that they constructed or the way that they drew the cities and stuff was actually pretty spot on. And you know, and I just would like to see that kind of atmosphere, that kind of, you know, just instead of seeing Tokyo, you get to see.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, isn't that how Gion is? That they've got the old quarter there in Kyoto.
Oh yeah.
Where it's all the little old low buildings and everything else. So they have something that's, you know, thinking about looking at Gintama. It's like some of those way that the Heisei period kind of things looked, or was it Heisei? Heian?
Heian.
Or which one? Heian.
I think,
wait a minute. Heisei is now, isn't it?
But was now,
Showa,
I think?
Showa Heisei?
No, Heisei is now.
Okay, Heisei is now, so it's Heian. That you kick back that far, and it's like that's what the old sector, old quarter of Gion kind of looks like. My understanding. Reiwa. There we go. Sorry. And yes, I'd also like to see Chunibyo and Other Delusions. That would be a good place to see too.
Absolutely. Also, quick update, and I don't have a good answer on this one. Technically, the Heisei era has ended, but I'm not quite sure what the new one is because it ended with the abdication of the Emperor.
Reiwa.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck in the
Naming
Showa.
systems are
Sorry.
confusing. There's actually
the conventions for the emperor to naming those ages is so ludicrous. It's not even funny. They shorten it down now to just like three epochs within an emperor's lifetime. But before it'd be like, okay, the first year we call it this, and the second year we call it this, and the fifth year we call it this, seventh year we call it this. Then if they live to be 60 years old, then we call it this, and then we call it. There's like, so you know, like when you're trying to figure out what you're just like going, okay, was it in the 5th year, 70th year of his reign? What you know, and you're just trying to figure that out. But they shorten it down to, I think,
this is where you just celebrate the silver jubilee,
right?
Jubilee.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's it. Yeah,
exactly.
That makes it so much easier to do it.
There was actually a really neat thing that was done in anime. It all ties back to anime. There was a recent Patlabor series that set Patlabor in I think the 68th year of the Showa era, and the Showa era is only 64 years long, because they wanted to get across the fact that this was an alternate timeline. And so just by setting it in, a different year of the Showa era, told you, oh, okay, yeah, things went differently. It's just kind of a clever way of pointing folks to a change in your timeline, I thought. But cool, yeah. I think that's all the news fit to print this week.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's been a fairly slow couple of weeks for news. I think partly because we're in the middle of the new anime announcement cycle, so we get announcements of a few anime here and there, but nothing like really huge. We have about a month until the next season starts, so.
I've seen some October mentions here and there, but it's it's still the lingering effects of 6 months of COVID.
Yeah. Although hopefully,
7 months
outside.
Although hopefully, we have been seeing I'll put it this way. I was concerned that the slates for each season would be much thinner than they actually are. The production pace still seems to be pretty good, all things considered. So that's a relief.
I think we had brought up, some number of shows ago about you don't have to physically do as much animation running as you would have 20 years ago. That with a digital medium and digital tools for animation, that you arguably, as long as you've got connection and you can send documents in, you can send it to whoever's compiling this stuff and communicate back and forth and never have to leave your 10 foot by 10 foot apartment.
Yep.
Awesome. It's just subsequently led to a lot of animators going completely insane.
More insane.
Yes.
I wonder what it's like for some of these. I know, Shoji Kawamori famously, he likes doing weekly production meetings, according to his staff, because that's the only time he actually interacts with people in real life. And it's kind of what speaking broadly and kind of humorously, it's kind of what keeps him sane, and kind of, again, it sort of keeps him in touch with people. Is okay, we'll have a meeting every week and we'll all talk and we'll actually have chats. So that must be tough, when you can't do that anymore and you are kind of forced to be alone doing your stuff.
Well, thank goodness for Skype and Zoom and Discord and other platforms, Twitch.
Absolutely. And Michael Gorilla actually bring up an interesting point. There's so many Chinese anime series now. I do wonder, and I kind of hope, that COVID is also pushing people towards, the larger world of animation. There's Korean animation out there and Chinese animation and all sorts of other stuff. So hopefully this will lead to some diversity as well.
Well, I know for God of High School, but I don't know if it's an animated studio involved with it, but geez, it is set in Seoul.
Yeah.
Lives in Seoul. There was one. It was a Chinese anime about a kid who went to live with foxes, and people are trying. He was the grandson of somebody, and people are trying to kill him. And the foxes actually defended him. And I can't remember. It wasn't Senko, the fox matchmaker. It was, but it was something like, I think it might have been the Spirit Fox Matchmaker. But it was Chinese made, where it was all Japanese throughout, except for the intro and the exit songs were all in Chinese.
Interesting.
So it was like, I saw the little preview for it, and it's, some of what they were talking, and I'm like, oh, okay, this would be kind of cute. And then it starts in the intro song, and I'm like, that's Chinese. Which, didn't affect the plot. It just was kind of interesting. It's like, wow, okay, now I know where this is coming from. So that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Scissor 7, I just heard the title and the fact that was Chinese. That's really cool. With God of High School is being animated at MAPPA, which is the Madhouse spinoff. So it's
Madhouse, right?
Yeah, definitely animated in Japan, but it is very much a South Korean manhwa, and they're
including
heavy on it.
Everybody's name.
Yeah,
Daiwi is like one of the guys. Jin Mori, it's not so much, but Jin.
Well,
is
and
Korean.
And I definitely feel like being a Korean manhwa, I feel like also, especially these days, it's like, let's not hide that anymore. I think we can just, I think we can make this be Korean. It's fine. Let's all chill out about that stuff. Times have changed. Cool. All right. That is that. Let's talk about some anime history, shall we?
Shall.
Because history happens, and we should talk about it. Unfortunately, we'll have to start with a rather serious note, but it is an important point in history. Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where I like to look at various events that happened historically related to this week. And we're starting this week with a serious story, but worth mentioning. The Great Kanto earthquake occurred on September 1st, 1923. This was a very dark time. It was a major earthquake, killed many, many people, destroyed huge amounts of Japan, and was of an industrialized Japan. And Japan was still on its way to industrialization, and this was a major blow. Also important for anime because the nascent anime industry was badly affected. Pretty much all of the existing animations at the time burned in the fires of the Great Kanto earthquake because there's just only so many copies around and so many different fires. If you've seen The Wind Rises, Hayao Miyazaki's relatively recent film, there's a whole sequence in there of the Great Kanto earthquake. And it was a major thing for anime and for Japan in general. And it's one of the reasons why September 1st in Japan is National Disaster Prevention Day, when people get together and run through disaster preparedness events and make sure everyone's ready in the case of a terrible event like that happening in the future. So worth noting and remembering. Moving on to a definitely lighter topic than that. September 4th, 1963 was the premiere of Hermit Village, an anime series that was only 12-minute episodes, but it was the first late-night anime TV series, so it's a little bit more for the grown-ups in terms of its material. Exactly. And we mean it that way. This is the story of various amorous adventures of the main character here. Very fantastical, but still playing around with various amorous advances and amorous plot lines involving those things. Definitely nothing explicit, but playing around with things. And we talked about this earlier, somewhat like the cartoons and like Playboy and things along those lines, where sort of sexiness, but more implied than actual. And worth noting that for all of the the Doraemons and the Astro Boys and the Gigantors in the 1960s, we also had this, right? That was also a thing, all the way back. Goes all the way back. Exactly. It's sex sells. Moving on, about a decade to 1972. In September of 1972, Studio Sunrise was established. I have not been able to find the date. People have just said, yeah, sometime in September it came together. I think it kind of depends on how you define like when they incorporated versus when they got together and when, all those sorts of things. Sunrise was founded by a group of animators who came out of Tezuka's studios primarily and were a little frustrated with Tezuka's sort of command and control approach, where the stuff made at Tezuka's work were Tezuka's works, and he was very much controlling those things and very much the artistic vision, and they wanted a more democratic approach to animation. And they also wanted to focus on mecha, because mecha was a really big thing in the at the time, and they said, hey, let's try to specialize in the way that mechanical things, particularly giant robots, move, and so we can kind of become known for that. And it is still a very important thing at Sunrise that they have sort of this democratic view. In fact, if you watch some Sunrise anime series, you'll often see in the credits under planning the name Hajime Yatate is the planner for dozens and dozens of Sunrise anime series. That's actually a pseudonym which roughly translates as all of us. It is basically a pseudonym for all of them working together, and the works at Sunrise are much more collaborative in intent, whether it works out that way all the time, but they try to be very collaborative with their works over at Sunrise. So definitely an important anime studio. They made this little show called Gundam. I don't know if you heard of that one. They did Love Live and a bunch of other things as well, I believe. So very cool. Sunrise exists because of September 1972 and of folks deciding to do things differently with anime. God damn!
God damn. Oh, that sounds like a Southern party right there.
I would pay to see a Southern version of Gundam.
Wow. How many bumper stickers can
Sure,
you
Admiral, you come down here. God damn it. God damn it, Amaro.
Boy, you better grow up quick.
Totally Southern. It's
oh,
it works.
Boy.
That's hilarious.
You know, there's probably somebody out there, exactly, Michael. There's probably a Southern dub probably out there already. AMV folks probably out there working hard on making sure that happens.
Matilda-san, go away.
Oh gosh, Sergeant Carter.
Did Sunrise do early Lupin the Third? That's a good question. That could be. Although that means Miyazaki had been working with him, so I don't think so. I don't think he ever worked at Sunrise. Let's see here. Lupin the Third. Let me just check that real quick. TV show. See if we can find out. There are a total of 6 anime TV series. Anime TV series part 1 was nobody says Tokyo Movie.
Tokyo Movie.
Yes, now known as Tokyo Movie Shinsa or TMS Entertainment.
Okay.
They did Lupin the Third, Rose of Versailles, Conan, Detective Conan, Anpan Man, Hamtaro, Monster Rancher.
Oh,
yes.
joy.
Monster Rancher.
Monster
for those who remember
Rancher?
That. Yeah. Golgo 13, The Professional, Akira, which was pretty good.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Yeah.
They also did a lot of Western work. So Inspector Gadget, Real Ghostbusters, Rainbow Bright, DuckTales, Winnie the Pooh, Tiny Toon Adventures, Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, and Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Animaniacs.
Holy moly.
Yep. A lot of folks,
Tiny Toons and Animaniacs. Wow.
Tiny Toons and Animaniacs and DuckTales. So, Warner Brothers and Disney.
That's
weird.
really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fascinating going back and looking at all those connections where it's like, yeah, we made that cartoon.
Yeah.
Halfway across the world.
Well, I mean, Walt Disney anime. Walt Disney Animation. Whoosh. Whoa, what are we talking about again? Walt Disney Animation has gone through such interesting development and dissolution over the last 20 or 30 years. I remember going to Disney MGM Studios, and they, back in the late 90s, it was a working segment of Disney Animation. So you could actually do a animation tour, which would take you through a building, and you'd look through like two-way glass, and you'd see the animators at work on various Disney One Saturday Morning shows. and then they gutted it all out and sent everybody who was going to survive the gutting back to California and stopped doing it.
Mm.
Like that was their thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just stopped doing it. Like
they were working on. I forget when I was there and I saw it. I think they were working on Aladdin.
Mm.
I think.
TV or the movie?
I remember the movie.
Oh.
And the one thing I kept wondering about is everyone's like, pressed their face against the glass and trying to look at the cells and stuff like that. He just being one of the animators down there in the fishbowl and just like going, I'm going to draw something phallic in here just to come on.
Yeah, something terrible.
Explosions.
I think when I was there, they were working on Recess, Pepper Ann, and something else for the one Saturday morning block.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was interesting, and it's like, but it went away.
There's a great documentary called "Waking Sleeping Beauty," which was made by Don Hahn, who is one of the
Don Hahn, really?
Yeah, who, for those who don't know, one of the big leading lights of the animators in Disney, and like he narrates the entire thing, and so it's just his perspective, and like he has footage of Eisner and all these people and all of this stuff, and he just kind of narrates what it was like during the Disney Renaissance, basically, and that whole experience, which was an experience. What's great at is that I think it's so you see him in front of a camera walking through the studio, and somebody's behind the camera doing that, and they're sort of going through the animators, and this is the 80s, and he's talking to folks, and he says, so here's where we do all the work, and there's Tim Burton, and there's this guy, and there's that guy, and like there's Tim Burton, like right there doing his stuff. And they come across
he's a little weird.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Don't talk to him or feed him after midnight. He's okay, everybody.
And then like some studio exec comes by and says, "Hey, what you guys doing?" He says, "Oh, we're filming a little thing," and he says, "Hey, what's your names?" And he says, "I'm Don Hahn," and he behind the camera, "I'm John Lasseter." Okay, hi, John, and walks out. He's like, "Oh,
Wow.
There's some random guy behind the camera at Disney." So yeah, interesting times. But amazing. All right. That's true, there's a Stitch anime. Defunctland is great.
Yes.
Absolutely. You will suck a lot of time into Defunctland if you let it.
It is a time suck.
It's so nostalgic, though.
And you can learn about Action Park.
Class Action Park?
Yeah. Traction Park?
There's a Netflix movie on that.
Really?
I think it's HBO.
Yeah, it's coming out. It's HBO Max. Yeah,
cool.
It's coming out, and they're actually talking about that thing, and it's just, and they keep showing the water slide loop. Yeah. It's just like, and I'm just like watching it, going, yeah, that's what would kill me. Now, the place would kill me. That's the thing.
I don't know how that didn't kill somebody every day.
They came close.
It might have, and they covered it up.
Close. Well, did you hear that in the promo for it? This woman says, "Well, nobody would insure the park." So the guy, the owner, he actually created his own insurance company and he insured himself.
That's not how insurance works.
Well, apparently it did.
Wow. Yeah. When a theme park has to buy extra ambulances for the local emergency services because of how overworked you have made them.
Yep.
Something's up. Something's wrong. It sounds illegal. Probably was.
Yeah.
And Defunctland's done some great stuff on all these weird, like Santa's Villages, like all of those weird little parks scattered all over the U.S.
Creepy little places.
what's the one that's near here or used to be near here, and it was basically on German folklore, and it's obviously it's
Oh, Kaiserland.
Kaiser. No. I was like,
Yeah, that's the one.
Heil on down to Kaiserland.
No, well, this over here is the trench warfare area. It's over here. Like, oh, jeez. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry, Steve.
All right. I was like, Kaiserland. Yeah, that sounds great.
And the Retro Lederhosen. Awesome.
But it was the last time I saw it, it's now been like actually sold off, and like the things that could be moved and sold to people has been moved and sold. So it no longer exists at all. But it was like this creepy little, like nobody came. And my parents to this park in the end, and my parents thought, okay, this is a good thing to bring the kids to. So they brought my sisters and I, and we were just like the only ones in the park, and it's raining and it's gray, and we're walking around, and there's little mushroom huts, and they just it's just like, okay, there's the first murder house, and there's the next murder house, and then there's like a swing set in the middle of somewhere, and there's this like slide, and it's not even any real rides. You just kind of walk around, and there's these kind of like half kiltered, like little dwarf figurines that look like the horrific expressions of I've seen too many parties happen in front of me. I wish I could. For now, thank you. For now, it's gonna be Kaiser.
Of course, yeah.
Kaiserland.
Yeah.
But as a kid, we had a place called Lenape Park, and it had this really cool wooden roller coaster, a fun house kind of thing, bumper cars, all kinds of neat stuff. And it was built on a floodplain next to the Brandywine River. So every time it rained, the entire place went underwater.
Right.
And it was like, it was a bad idea when you built it in like the 40s, and it was a still terrible idea in the 1970s, and it hung around until probably almost 1980, when they finally just bellied up. You can only self-insure for so long. And away it went. There's lots of these little things.
Yeah, we had Pet Farm Park that was basically a zoo on basically 2 acres. Like, it was tiny.
Wow.
It just had a little monkey enclosure and some zebras and that kind of stuff. And so, it was
a very eccentric guy with a
Old Man Witherspoon.
Oklahoma.
Oh, you one eccentric guy.
Oh goodness.
Pet Farm Park was built and run by the Crippen family. That is basically the local real estate magnates. And I happen to know this because not far from where my parents live, they owned and operated a dump, like a stump dump, a place where you go and you throw away garbage. And it was like off this side road, and it operated for a very long time. And so basically, to get to my parents' house, you drove down this little road, and then there was this little entrance off into this large area, and so everyone would kind of get frustrated because there'd be 10 dump trucks a day coming down, dumping trash, and then he decided to live there and turn it into a zoo.
The dump?
Yes. So he had a whole bunch of animals, like exotic animals, like giraffes and emus, taken to this dump and put there as he planned to build his house on the top of the giant pile of garbage that had, dirt piling, obviously, and so forth. But he was going to have this giant commanding view of, everything from the top of this until the county came and said, you can't do that. In so many ways, you cannot do that.
Methane gas release and all that, it's only just an explosion hazard in addition to toxic chemicals.
And part of the problem is that, they had all these animals there, but, there was no one to come and see them. So, they were being fed and so forth, but someone was just going to come in, feed them, and leave. So, we had some friends who lived near there, and in the night you just hear emus going, ah, ah. I don't know.
It's like living in the wild.
It was crazy. And they were there for months. Just for months, yeah, this zoo, until eventually the county came in and said, out, no further, and it all had to move away. It's pretty. It was an eccentric dude.
Imagine going there and just like, let's feed the emus or whatever, the giraffes, and what's that smell? Was that the giraffe? No, honey, it's the garbage next to the giraffe.
Yeah.
What's all that?
Poop smells like garbage. No, it's just garbage.
Honey, don't light your cigarette. We don't know what'll happen. Break it out of the park.
Please, no open flames.
Well, this is the other thing. It was unclear, and I don't think he ever said whether this was going to be a public park or not, or just like his private estate full of exotic animals.
This is my giraffe.
Because this wasn't like zoned as a park. It was just some random spot off like in a neighborhood, basically.
I wonder if it was even like properly prepared as a dump.
Probably not.
You know what I mean? What did it have? Like a clay liner?
Well,
did it have all the stuff that would protect liquids from leaking into the water table?
They probably looked at it at the site and said, "Oh, this is a beautiful area. Bring trucks."
And in fairness, it was a stump dump, so like you couldn't put just like household garbage there. You could only do like vegetable garbage, things along those lines. It was only certain things, but still, it did not smell good. It was rotting things in there.
It was a giant compost pile.
It was a giant.
That's where I want my house to be.
Exactly. Yes. On top of
next to or on top of rotting things.
Mm-hmm.
A giant compost pile house with very fertile soil.
Yes.
Very fertile.
Oh my God.
See, I was thinking it was like refrigerators and televisions and everything else. I'm like, wow, what a horrible choice. Not that rotting vegetable matter is a better choice necessarily, but at least you don't have like cadmium and other things leaking out of electronics down into the water table.
Exactly.
So that's something.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah. Sean, that is really cool being able to talk to Carl Majek. A thing that we can no longer do, sadly. That is definitely a big experience.
A nice dude.
Yeah.
Got his autograph. He was a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was doing what he thought was best, as we usually do, much of us.
As Harmony Gold still holds on to the Macross Robotech thing like a death grip.
That's, as far as I can tell, that's not exactly Carl Machek's fault. Like I don't think Carl Machek would want that to happen. Those are the business guys talking.
That's the money side.
That's the money side, exactly. Cool. Well, I have a question for everyone.
Huh?
What did we learn on the show tonight, Brent? There we go. I've definitely learned a lot about discs of anime and what we do and don't like to spend our money on that side of things. What else have I learned? I learned it's actually hard to figure out what is a good place to visit virtually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anime is kind of generic that way, a lot of times.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to A Silent Voice. I was like, nope. Can't think of anything in that movie that I would, that is an iconic physical location. Obviously the koi thing, but it's a river.
How about when the younger sister is standing there with that waterfall coming over top of her? I'd like to see where that is.
That was cool. Yeah.
She's standing by the river, and then is that just a recirculating pump somewhere down there, or is that like a side stream that you diverted to come out like that? Because that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I agree.
So alternating between sadness and coolness.
Yeah.
Watch it. Oh, that's really cool. And wait, oh god.
Do the do the Homer Simpson thing, point at it, be like,
Exactly. I've learned that Kramer is a footballer.
Yes. Most importantly, not the Kramer from Seinfeld.
The Kramer from Seinfeld.
Although I would also pay to see a Kramer anime from Seinfeld anime. Like that would
that would be kind of weird.
Weird in many ways. What did y'all learn?
Learn that Crunchyroll and Sentai are negotiating and doing things.
Yeah.
So since they already had their collab with Funimation, now we're going over with Sentai. So it'll be interesting to see what parts of the catalog come and go in that relationship. So that'll be fun to see. And that Angel's Egg is not a rom-com.
I mean, how do you define rom-com? Right? Like,
there's a kind of love there.
Right.
Not really sure.
Yeah.
What you would define it as necessarily, but
And the harpoons were hilarious.
Yes. Yes. The fishermen were jocular at the best.
Yes.
Go ahead. I think I was going to say something else. Carry on, Steve. Carry on.
No, I was just going to say I learned that I'm old, and because
you only found that out tonight. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Once you told me how old Sunrise was, I felt really old.
Yeah.
72.
And that I will still lose my money on DVDs, and Sentai and Crunchyroll are just feeding the habit. I might as well do cocaine. I don't know. And Angel's Egg is a fun and rumpus ride. Think what's a happy fun go lucky anime? It's just like that, whatever that you can think of as a happy fun.
Lucky Star.
Lucky Star. It's the Lucky Star of art house, and you should enjoy it and you enjoy these very pale characters going. I learned that's one interpretation you can have of Angel's Egg. No, I learned that art house anime can be just frustrating as David Lynch.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Cool. All right. I think that will do it for us. You're never gonna get to the higher level. I like that. I like that one, Sean.
I'll take that.
Yeah. Totally agreed. Cool. All right. Thank you all for joining
I'd like
us.
to stop leveling up now. I need to stop leveling up. Stay right here.
Thank you all so much. We'll be back next week with more of the same. Hope you guys have a great time. Oh, next time, if we keep to the schedule, I think next time on the anime discussion, let me just pull up and see what I had on that. It would be Akira.
Oh, yes. Speaking of discs I own.
There we go. So that will be an interesting thing to talk about because, boy, there's things to talk about with Akira. Cool.
I have a McFarlane piece. The bike with Kaneda on it.
Nice.
So that was my support of that franchise.
There we go. Cool. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. We will see you guys next week. Bye, all.
See ya.